All right, cool. Well, this is session number one for Ignite, and everybody has a copy of the handout, right?
Yes.
Just this is the audience participation.
Yes.
And what we're going to do is we're going to start. There's a section where we're going to be jumping to where it says advanced preparation and key ingredients. That's 1.1. We'll move quickly through this and then we'll get to the good stuff. This course was originally designed for Keller Williams agents. We make it available to anybody from any company at no expense. So there will be some mentions of some of the things that we do. But if you're new to Keller Williams, there's a market center orientation, which you may or may not have gone through, a technology orientation, which I know some of you are. And my name, by the way, is Mike Devlin. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the productivity coach for this particular market center. By the way, in Keller Williams, we call offices market centers, right? So when I say that, that's what I'm referring to. You see movement out there. And I'll talk a little more about that, but there's an orientation for the productivity coaching program. We also have a website and a Keller Williams profile, which we want you to get to 100%. And you should have business cards. I'm sure a lot of you have all that by now. So let's go to page 1.3 where it says get your head in the game. And it starts, this is sort of putting you where we're going with all of this. On the right, there's a quote from Gary Keller, who is one of the co-founders and the chairman of the board for Keller Williams Realty. And one of the things that he did, which we'll be sort of referring to as we go along, is he wrote a book back in about 2003 called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which some of you may have been familiar with. It's still a good read. He interviewed over 150 millionaire real estate agents, not Keller Williams agents necessarily, some were, but just people that were netting $1 million in commissions. My background, by the way, I spent 25 years working for Century 21. I know that seems hard to believe given my youthful appearance, but it's not that funny. So I was 9 or something like that. And 5 years I was the director of training for Century 21 for Northern California, Northern Nevada, among other things. And 20 years I was the vice president of the largest Century 21 group in Silicon Valley. And I knew some of the people that actually were interviewed in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and some of the models which they found that those agents were using are some of the models that Keller Williams uses and are the basis for this program. So imagine your business is thriving. That's why you're here. Life is everything you dreamed of. Top agent in the market center. There's a family reunion to get awards, and it says you've already capped. You're receiving 100% of your commissions. One of the things that Keller Williams does that may be different from most real estate companies is we have a system called capping. And what capping means is that once the office has received a certain amount of company dollars, at that point you are on 100% commission for the rest of that particular year. It's a good thing to get to, right? In our market, that roughly involves, come on in, about 6 transactions. So after 6 transactions, you've capped and are at 100%. Good morning, how are you doing?
Thank you.
And I see
6 transactions at what? 500?
well, the way I'll explain how the capping amount varies from office to office. In this particular office, it's $30,000. There's also a $3,000 Keller Williams International royalty fee. So after after $30,000, the market center has received $30,000, you're at 100% after that. So we're going to do a commission example, but let's say you sold a $700,000 house at 2.5% for a side. That would be a little over $17,000 in gross commission. At $100,000, if you're on a 70-30 split, which is traditional in Keller Williams, then at $100,000, at 30% to the office, that would be $30,000. So 100,000 in gross commissions, roughly, you'd be at 100%, with 17,000 as a typical commission, right? And it could be closer to 20 depending on the price, but we'll talk about pricing. How many transactions do you need at 17,000 gross to make it to 100? 5, right? Something like that would put you over, right? So that's called capping. We're big on hiring teams to grow your business. We're on page, for those of you that have just come in, 1.3. And also talks about Gary Keller, co-founder, wants you to have success in real estate and build a career worth having, a business worth owning, and a life worth living, which is what is our mission and vision statement. And one of the things that we're going to start off with is a little movie. Does that sound like, here, let me just, hang on one second. Should have done this earlier. I take it you could all hear that.
Hi, I'm Gary Keller.
Let's try this again.
Hi, I'm Gary Keller.
Let me
Buffering,
just,
it's buffering.
all right, let's try this one more time. I have too many audio devices on my computer.
Hi, I'm Gary Keller. This course will allow you to get off to a fast start you can build on. Because if you repeated the principles every 90 days for a year, believe me, you have an awesome first year. And just as important, you would have built the foundation and momentum for your entire career. It is practical, realistic, and easy to apply. It's about the fundamentals that determine your level of success in the business of real estate. From our research with top agents, we have found that they too started their careers with these fundamentals, and they continue to do them along with their teams to this very day. And it's not hard. It just requires a little focused effort a few hours every day. Now, there is really just one way to achieve the goal. It's lead generation. Other skills are important, yet without leads to work with, your skills won't mean a thing. Dealing with business never takes precedence over what? Finding business. Never. Research shows that top producing agents make lead generation their #1 priority and the one thing they make sure they always get done. You can do this. And when you do, you will get the leads, the relationships, the experiences, the career, and the income that you want and deserve. Go get them, and good luck.
All right, cool. In your handout on page 1.4, it says we watched Gary Keller's. What is the one thing, the one way to achieve success in real estate?
Lead generation.
Lead generation. Which is more important, dealing with business or finding business?
Finding business.
Finding business. And what are the habits of top producing agents?
Lead generation.
Lead generation is the first priority.
Lead generation is the first priority. I'm glad to see you were paying attention to that. That's great. We're going to talk about that in your path to success. It says Ignite is designed to get your business up and running and into production as quickly as possible. There's 18 sessions. We're doing them Monday through Friday from 9 to about noon. It's structured, and it's going to go on for the entire month. If you miss one, it's okay. People send me emails saying if I miss one, is that all right? We don't flunk people out. Not very often. There's a list and a description of what the different power sessions are. Most of you that enrolled online received the link, didn't you, which has the calendar? If not, I'll make sure. Didn't you get an email for that? I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of that. And then the Ignite tools, there's a manual. The link, which was those of you that signed up on the online form, got a link that included the toolkit, scripts, and all the other forms that we use in Ignite. If you haven't gotten that, talk to me afterwards and I'll make sure that you do get it. let's go on where it says, don't let the myths slow you down, which is on page 1.8. We call these beliefs myths because they're rarely, if ever, true. And the millionaire real estate agent Gary Keller writes that the source of most of our fears is myth. An interesting statement. And he goes on to say, I find it extremely helpful to think of fears in terms of what generally creates them. Myths and what sets us free from them are truths. And so there's a list here of some myths that we find hold people back in real estate. Let's take a look at them. And let's see, does number one ring, does anybody, number one says I have to be an expert and know everything before I can kickstart my business. I'm not valid yet. Does anyone feel that they're not good enough at real estate to work with people? We've got one honest person. One of the most common things I'm asked as a trainer and coach is I have people that have told me they don't want to talk to the people they know. They don't want to talk to family and friends. They don't want to talk to previous business associates until they've sold a few homes, because they don't want to practice on their friends and family, right? I don't know about you, but think of it this way. If you had a friend who went to medical school, and after they graduated, they called you up and said, hey, I just got my medical license. Do you know anyone who's sick? Right? If you ever see anybody get hurt, give me a call, right? Give them my card. That might seem a little odd. And so I find people, one guy who told me he wasn't going to talk to his family and friends or his former coworkers until he was good at real estate. It's now been over a year and a half. And he's had one transaction because he's still waiting to get good at real estate before he talks to his family and friends. Now, in our office, for people that are new, we use a program that's like a mentoring program so that you have somebody with you that makes sure somebody's standing next to you when you're doing your first operation that'll say, ooh, don't do that, right? Leave that alone, that sort of thing. But you'll never know everything, right? Do you understand? You'll never know everything. And although we have repetitive classes on how to fill out forms, how to use the MLS, how to write contracts, how to use the software, the reality is that you never get good at it until you start doing it, right? The only way to really learn the business is to get a live one and go through the process of buying or selling a house. How about I don't know what to say? Has anybody still got the one honest guy raising his hand on? Two honest. So is there, one of the problems that I found, we talk about the fear of rejection. People that say, well, I don't want to ask people because they might say no, There's also a fear of acceptance. I know a lot of agents that the last thing they want to hear is somebody say, yeah, I'm going to sell my house, come on over, right, this afternoon, right? Now, come on over. Right, and what?
There are really people afraid of that?
Yes, there are people afraid of that because they don't know what to do or what to say when they get there, right? And they're afraid they'll make a fool of themselves, and so it's like, well, maybe not this afternoon. How about tomorrow? And one of the things that top agents seem to do is to practice scripts and practice their presentations, right? I can remember when I was a new agent, I went on a listing appointment, and the guy said, give me 10 reasons why I ought to list my home with you, right? So I started, I hadn't really thought of that. And when I got to number 5, he said, you've already said that, right? You understand, at 4, I was sort of running out of steam. So I went home and I wrote out 10 reasons why somebody ought to list their home with me, and I practiced it, right? Yeah. So we need to practice what we're going to say, where to go. You need to know what to say, you need to know how to say it, and you need to have enough people to say it to. Anybody believe that getting a real estate license has prepared you for real estate success? Anybody believe that just because you aced the exam? In fact, I teach people how to pass the real estate licensing test, and one of the comments I make is that anybody who gets 100% of those questions right is probably a twisted and deviant individual that's not going to get along with human beings, right? You understand? So that has nothing to do with it. Anybody find that you don't have enough time for training? Anybody have that as an issue? If you're at Keller Williams, you might say that more often because we have a lot of training. How about I need money? I need a lot of money to invest. We've got a few of those going up. We believe in what we call lead through revenue, which is we want you to generate business. How you doing? Everything good? Where most of the most effective ways of finding clients and connecting with people don't cost any money, right? And we're going to talk about that. There was a movie called The Field, what was it, Field of Dreams? I don't know. I'm the only one.
Build it and they'll come.
Build it, yeah, if you build it, they will come. That doesn't work very well in real estate, right?
Unless you build a house, right?
That's right.
But it's still sign.
And right now, if you built the house, you could sell it, right? Sell your own houses. I'm busy. Is there a difference between being busy and being productive?
Oh, yeah.
And now that I'm my own boss, I don't need to be held accountable. The number one reason, what's the number one reason why people get into real estate?
To be their own boss.
To be their own boss, right? Isn't that true? Right?
Yeah.
Freedom and independence. There's a old quote that freedom is a gift not always wisely used. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we're going to ask you is you're the CEO of your own business. And we'll talk about effort and commitment, but if one of the things we're going to ask you to do is to rank yourself, if you owned your business, would you fire yourself, right? We'll get to that in a minute, right? I think. So, help when you need it. Accountability sessions. Every Friday there's an accountability session, but it's very difficult to hold ourselves accountable, isn't that right? If I'm going to lose weight, does it help for me to tell people, right? And maybe even people that can see me standing on a scale. Most of the agents that are very successful have accountability systems built in. We will have regular accountability sessions at the end of the week. Coaching, as I mentioned, I'm the productivity coach for this market center. In November, Inman News. How many people are familiar with Inman? Inman. That's it. Inman is one of the largest real estate media organizations in the United States, Inman. And they released a study in November of 2014, and basically what it shows is the benefits that coaching had. Agents that were in a coaching system were 6 times more likely to achieve their results, and the return on the investment was very high. And if you're interested, we'll explain more. We have coaching after coaching after coaching at Keller Williams. And everybody understands there's a difference between training and coaching, right? This is training, right? You sit in the room with a bunch of other people at a desk like this. Coaching involves setting goals, devising a structure, and having regular meetings where you can check on your progress towards them. The learn to earn model, and let's see, what do I want to say about that? All of our training and coaching is designed to help you make money. We want, let me just move on to this next section. Today's plan of action, 1-9. So this first power session says here 8 easy steps. We're going to talk about goal setting, winning customers. We're going to talk about how to build your database, how to become a customer service professional, how to develop power habits, plan for a new life, leveraging resources, and opening for business. That's it, right? Just those 8 things. And in the Gear Up session, it says that Ignite is designed to keep you active and in productivity in class. We're going to have some learning sessions on role play and real play. We're going to actually make some phone calls. We're going to build our database. And what I'd like to do is move to 1-11 where it talks about our goal. So what is success? Ignite was designed to get you up to the level of doing 16 transactions a year. And what I wanted to do is just talk about what a typical work week should. How many of you would say you're in real estate full time? right? Most people,
When I get
full-time,
there, yeah.
right? Pretty close,
I take the test.
right? When you take the test?
After I take the test.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're in the process, right? Well, that's good.
Oh, that's great.
So full-time would be 40 hours,
Mhm.
right? Now, what is the one thing, the number one thing that a real estate agent ought to be doing?
Lead generation.
Lead generation. So would it be fair to say that when you're new and you don't have people to show homes to, that 80% of your time should be spent on the number one thing that you ought to be doing? Does that seem? Now, I realize, by the way, that there's something wrong with this slide, right? And I mean, there's something terribly wrong with this slide. Does anybody know what's terribly wrong with this slide?
40 hours a week.
40 hours a week. All right, so let's, obviously, so I changed slides, right? There's just a few numbers that changed. Because obviously, if we wanted to work 40 hours a week, we wouldn't be in real estate. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? I mean, we're in real estate, so we don't have to work 40 hours a week. Isn't that the idea? So let's try 20 hours a week. Does that make everybody feel a little more comfortable?
Yes.
All right, a 20-hour work week. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
And if we were going to work 20 hours and we spend 80% of our time doing the number one thing that we ought to be doing, right? So 80% spent on lead generation or prospecting would be 16 hours a week, right? That's 80% of a 20-hour work week. And if you work 5 days a week, that would come out to 3.2 hours a day. And if we rounded it down just to, right, so we're taking a 20-hour work, 80% focus on the number one thing, rounded down, that's 3 hours a day. Now, how many hours a day do you spend on lead generation? Just, you don't have to, we're gonna make all of you say the number and put it on our Facebook page, but probably not. So when when agents say to me, well, you know, I'm not making any money in real estate's not working. I've actually had people say to me that I've done everything you've asked, right? Which it's not really true, right? Not really true. So at 3 hours a day of lead generation, how many people could we talk to if we spent 3 hours a day on lead generation?
A lot.
A
Probably
lot?
like, at least
Depends on the
100,
lead generation.
50, yeah.
Could we talk to 10 people in a day if we spent 3 hours focused on it? Does that sound like a high number, right? 10 people a day that we don't already know. So if we made contact with 10 new people a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, because you got to have time off, right? So that's 2 days off every week, 2 weeks off every year. 50 times 50 is 2,500 contacts, right? 10 people a day, 5 days a week would mean 2,500 people you would have contacted by the end of the year. Now, if you were to assume that people buy and sell every 15 years, now, by the way, the National Association of Realtors says it's more like 9. But it depends on who you're talking to, right? Condos, townhomes, starter homes, they buy and sell. The turnover rate's higher. Saratoga, Los Gatos, turnover rate's lower. So 15 years is a conservative number, right? You understand? Most people buy and sell homes more at a rate faster than 15 years. So if we took the 2,500 contacts and divided it by 15, if people buy and sell every 15 years, then what that means is that 1/15 is buying and selling in any given year. That's 166 transactions that would come from that 2,500 people. And let's assume you're not good at this, and that 90% of the people you talk to won't work with you. You can only get 10% of that group, that would be 16 transactions. Right?
Is that in 15 years?
No, a year.
Oh,
See,
okay.
the 15 years means if people buy and sell roughly every 15
I got
years,
it. So 25.
then 1/15 is buying or selling in any given year.
Gotcha.
So if you manage to talk to 2,500 people, there's roughly 166 real estate transactions from that group.
Gotcha.
And if you got 10%, you would
From the
get from that contact. That doesn't include people that they might know.
So you should hang this in your mirror so you see it as you're brushing your teeth every morning.
That seems like a good idea. In a different life, I worked for a photocopier company. I sold photocopiers in a different life. Now this, by the way, is called real sales, right? Not real estate sales, but real sales. And what,
Those real sales, the copy machine?
the copy machine, real sales, because what you had to turn in every day was a list of, they wanted to know how many people you called, how many appointments you set, how many copiers you sold. And by the way, 0 was not an acceptable number, right? Now, if you were to turn in every day a list of all the new people you had talked to, how many people you had talked to, and how many of appointments you had set, let me just put it this way. If we had a real job and we were spending as much time, and we went to our real job and they said, this is the most important thing for you to do, right? This is it, most important thing for you to do in this job. And we spent as much time doing that in the real job as we spend on lead generation, how many of us would still have the real job? Does that make sense what I just said? In a normal job, if
No.
they said, this is the number one thing we want you to do, you're at Home Depot and they say, this is the number one thing we want you to do, and we spent as much time during the day doing that as we currently spend on lead generation, they might let us go. Isn't that true? Right? They just might let us go. So, see, this is the secret. The
Are you
thing,
saying they might let us go because the people don't actually do the lead generation? Like,
I'm saying that
average
most
is-
people don't spend 3 hours a month on
You mean
lead
the real
generation.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's what
Okay,
I'm saying.
So it was a joke, yeah.
I'm saying that it's sort of, most of what I say is
Yeah,
sarcastic
yeah.
or cynical.
I have to read
Right.
between the, yeah.
Yeah.
got it.
Isn't it true, most real estate agents don't spend 3 hours a month on lead generation, right? Let alone 3 hours a week, let alone 3 hours a day. Isn't that probably true? And if we spent more time on, do you understand, real estate is actually a very simple business. But there's only 2 things you really need to know. One is you need to, first of all, how about this? You need to understand that sales is part of the business. Right? Now for some people this is a surprise. All right? I'm not kidding, right? You know, if I asked you if you didn't sell real estate, what would you sell instead? Right? Now a lot of times people look at me like, well, what do you mean, what would I sell instead? I wouldn't sell instead. Isn't that right? Right? Because many of us don't feel like we're in sales because we're in real estate. Isn't that right? We're not really in sales. All right? Does that make that, you know, because I've gone through this before. So one, you have to understand that sales is part of the business. And 2, what sales involves is 2 parts. One is knowing what you're selling. What is it that we're selling?
Homes.
Property.
So that means we're big investors, we own hundreds of homes, and we're putting them on the market for buyers to buy. Is that what we do?
No.
No, so we don't sell homes, right?
Right,
Does everyone understand? We don't sell homes.
yep.
Owners of homes sell homes, right? So what do we sell? Services. We-
Negotiation skills.
We sell a package of services, isn't that right? To buyers and sellers of real estate. Now, do you understand that? Would it be a good idea for us to be clear on what it is we're actually doing? Right? We're selling a package of services. So one question that we're going to ask as we go through this is, how good is your package of services right now? And how good are you at articulating why somebody would want your package of services if they were thinking about buying or selling? So the fundamental, we need to understand what the business is that we're in and what it is we're selling. And number 2, we then have to let people to know that it's for sale. Isn't that the second thing? It's actually pretty simple. The more people you talk to about real estate, the more you're going to get paid. If you talk to some people about real estate, you're going to get paid some. But if you talk to a lot of people about real estate, you're going to get paid a lot. Isn't that right? It's a function of how many people you talk to. And the good news is virtually everybody we know and everyone we meet is a potential client. Isn't that true?
Yep.
Right? They're going to want to buy or sell or invest in real estate, if not now, sometime in the future. And about 70% of all real estate business comes from following up. The fortune, my mentor used to say, is in the follow-up. Right? That's where the fortune is made, in the follow-up. So we talk to people, we follow up with them. What is the payoff? Well, could you live on 16 transactions a year in our market?
Yes.
I know you'd have to,
Wow.
you think, she's thinking, I'll have to cut back a little, right? But you might be able to live on that. So let's talk about a goal. Now, right now, we're just talking about gross commission income. So we're on page, whatever the next page is, 1-12. What would be, and what is the median price of a residential property in Santa Clara County
760?
for last month, right? March's figures are out.
I don't know.
It was 833,000 for Santa Clara
Wow.
County. If you were to take single-family condos and townhomes and lump them all together and find the median price, it was 833,000. Is that up or down?
Up.
Up. A little or a lot? A lot. It's up a lot. By the way, the number of sales in March compared to February for Santa Clara County of single-family condos and townhomes was up by 48%.
Wow.
Very
Right.
nice.
Did you guys know that?
Did not
That
know
sales went up by almost 50% from February and that the median price rose.
Is it
Wow.
because of the beginning of the school season?
Pardon?
Is it because it's the beginning they want to buy a house?
Is it because of the beginning of the school season? Perhaps. But how is that compared to, does everybody familiar with what's on the screen right now?
MLS, the name, but not the layout.
Right, you're familiar with the multiple listing service? I hope so. So if you click on Matrix is live, one of the things you can get to is what's called the statistics. For those of you, if we click on Matrix, and there's hopefully it hasn't logged me out, on stats. And there are some preset statistics, but you could also customize them. So you could put in Santa Clara County. And one of the things that you might want to look at is if you customize, let's go back for 3 years, and we want to know the number of sales, and we want to group it by, how about month? And we hit generate. Should a real estate agent, should somebody who's focused on selling real estate keep up with what's going on in the market?
Absolutely.
So 13, this was, and by the way, since the last time I did this, the numbers have gone up because we're still early in April. So the number of sales, let me make sure I did this right. I'm going to click on, I did something wrong, residential, I'm including single-family condos and townhomes.
And what area is it for?
Santa Clara County.
Okay.
But we could pick any area and click on generate and data. So 1,173, notice it was 789 the previous month. Now, that's higher than last year, lower than 2013, and much lower than what it was in March. So relatively speaking, this is a time when, if you look at the market, when the sales start to pick up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So traditional.
It's a traditional thing, but would it be a good thing for us as real estate agents to pay attention to that?
Sure.
All right. So does anybody, let's want to work through this together?
Yeah.
What would be a nice annual, we're talking about gross income, not net, that's a little more complicated, but just for purposes of seeing where we want to be. Does anybody have an income goal?
120.
120?
86,000.
86,000?
I was gonna say 200K.
How about 200? Sold? How about, can we
That's
start
gross,
with 200?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. So if we were to write in, I'm not saying this ought to be your goal, but this wouldn't be a bad goal. You want to buy a house, don't you, in Montessorino soon, don't you?
And well, this is also gross,
Gross.
right?
Right.
So you haven't taken any help.
Right. We have an economic model which does this. So let's write in 200,000. And by the way, just so we're going to go through the process, and then you could write in your own numbers. So what would we use as an average sales price? Now, the 833,000 that was the median price for Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County includes Palo Alto, Los Altos, Mountain View, and some areas that are really hitting it right now. How about 700,000? Does that sound like a nice
Yep.
conservative number? So we're going to write in for the average sales price 700,000. everybody with me? By the way, for single-family homes, one of the things that I used to do when I would do the areas for the MLS is I would do areas 1 through 23 rather than Santa Clara County. 1 through 23 includes Morgan Hill and Gilroy, that's area 1, right? And 23 is up in the Los Gatos Mountains. And that would be excluding Mountain View, Palo Alto, Los Altos. Right? Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad market, I'm just saying that that throws our numbers off a little bit. If we do that, the average, the median price was $785. Right? Now, do you understand if you ran, well, what was just San Jose, you'd get a different number. Right? Also, you'll find that the percent pending and days on market vary by area. So let's put in for average sales price 700,000, and what's the average commission percentage that we get?
3.
Is that true? No, it's not. How about 2.5?
2.5.
So if 700,000 is our average sales price and 2.5% is the average commission, what does that come out to be in terms of our numbers? How about $17,500 would be our commission dollars?
Okay.
Sorry again?
17,500. 2.5%. Generally, people in the business get very good at this. Right. I used to, a lot of people that are getting their real estate license have told me they can't do math, but I've never met one who couldn't calculate their commission. All right, I don't know. For some reason, they become math whizzes when it comes to that. All right, so if we want to make $200,000 and our average commission dollar is $17,500, that would mean, I would say, if we were to round up, 12 transactions.
So 1 a month?
1 a month, that's all we ask. 1 a month. All right. Now, so if your goal was 120,000 and 17,500, you're looking at maybe 8, something like that, just to 86,000, you're looking at 5, 6 maybe, in terms of gross commission income. All right, one of the statements that I went through quickly that Gary Keller says is aim high, think bold, right? Wouldn't it be better to, if we aimed for 200,000 and we only did 180, would that be terrible? Would we have failed?
Right.
Yes?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
So is it easier to, if we aim a little higher, maybe to reach our goal? Now, by the way, if, just to think about this, so let's say $200,000 would require 1 transaction a month. How many appointments would you need to get a transaction? Does anybody have a gauge of this? How many appointments would you need?
I think you need 20.
20 appointments? You need to meet 20 people in the office to get 1 closed transaction?
I think 6.
6 appointments?
1 hot buyer
Well, it
or
depends
1
if they're
hot
listing
seller
or
who's
buy-
the
or
buyer's
buy-
It does change if they're a buyer or a seller.
Right.
But is it, let's just say we needed 4, right? Now, one of the things that we would look at is that if you needed 20 appointments to get 1 client, we might want to talk about what are you saying to people and and who are you inviting to come in for appointments? Isn't that right? That would be, so if you
What are you
needed,
serving?
if you needed 4 appointments to get 1 client, right? And listings, it varies. So that would mean you would need 1 appointment a week. Isn't that right? You need 1 appointment a week in order to have 1 closing a month, in order to have 12 closings a year, in order to make $200,000. Does that sound like a burdensome schedule?
No.
No, probably not, right?
Hang on.
So let's go do it. All right, so I just want to put this into perspective. So, by the way, if we were focusing, can we eventually come up with how many people do I have to talk to in order to get an appointment? Anybody have an idea what that might be?
I think that would be 20, 10.
20 or
That would be
10?
like the 20, yeah.
How about if it was 100?
Wow, could be.
All right, well, if we talk to 10 people a day, that would be 50 a week, right? So if we talked to 100 people and we got an appointment, so if we talked to 20 people a day, we would have 100 a week. Could we talk to 20 people a day in 3 hours? 3 hours. You can't talk to 20 people in 3 hours.
Well, how many times you gotta get, how many calls do you make versus how many people do you actually
Talk-
converse with?
But if we talked to 100 people a week, then we would, and we needed to talk to 100 people to get an appointment, we would have an appointment a week, right? So your mileage may vary, isn't that true? So one of the things that you would want to track is, well, how many people do I contact in order to get an appointment, and how many appointments do I have until I get a client, and how many clients do I have until I have a closing, right? And then if we know those numbers, we could work backwards to a plan. Well, I know if I contact this number of people, I'm going to end up with this amount of business. Winning customers. Are we having fun yet? This is on
Yes.
1-13. Your business is built on customers and you are selling your service. That sort of sounds like what we were saying earlier. So now that you're open for business, there's no better time to get customers. This is what we call the countdown to payday. Your countdown to payday begins with getting leads. People who have a real estate need now or in the future. The countdown continues when you move to an appointment, to an agreement, to a contract, a closing, and a commission. This is the list. So we're going to start by talking about leads. Notice it says the top 3 are the fun tasks. For some people, those are the fun tasks. Working with people in the leads and the appointments and the agreements. So by agreements, just to make sure we're clear on this, an agreement would be a listing agreement or an agreement with a buyer. How many of you, when you work with buyers, have them sign some sort of an agreement? Don't everybody raise their hands at once. It would be, would you work with a seller without a signed listing contract?
No.
No. But we would work with buyers without any signed agreement.
It's a good practice to have.
It's a good practice to have. We'll talk about that. So an agreement, would it make it more, we'll talk more about that. Contracts, so agreements move to contracts. Contracts, we're talking about purchase contracts, not listing contracts. Right? To closings and to being paid. So getting leads, start with who you know. So remember I said that you're paid for talking to people. The more people you talk to, the more you get paid. We start by talking to the people we know because we know them. Isn't that right? All right. And then after you talk to the people you know, you talk to people that you don't know. The reason we talk to people we don't know is because many of us do not know enough people to make a career just out of talking to them. Isn't that right? Of the people that you know, or in Santa Clara County versus the people you don't know, which is the largest group? The people you know or the people you don't know? People you don't know, right? So we're going to need a plan with them, but we're going to start with the people we know. Start with the people you know. We call them at Keller Williams METS, M-E-T-S, right? People that you've met. A word about scripts. It says here, scripts are the tools of the real estate trade. Gary Keller tells the story of a guy that he hired to play. Gary Keller's into music, among other things. And so there's this guy that he hired to play at one of our Keller Williams events. And so Gary Keller asked him this question. He says, so how much are you paid when you perform? And the guy said, oh, I'm not paid anything to perform. And Gary Keller said, well, that sort of seems like an odd answer because I sort of recall we wrote you a check, right, for you to perform. And he said, no, I don't charge for the performance. What I charge for is the practice. I'm paid for practicing, right? Does that make sense? I'm paid to practice. Right? If you don't like musical metaphors, there was one about a football involving Joe Montana. And Joe Montana, who's a quarterback for the 49ers, in case you're not familiar with him, Joe Montana would practice 40 to 60 hours a week. How much time did he actually hold a ball in a game? And the answer was, on average, about 12 minutes. Right? So he was practicing 40 to 60 hours a week for when he held the ball for 12 minutes. Right? Isn't it true that people that are very good at what they do practice? Right? There was a book written about, it went through a number of people. Bill Gates was one of them. You know, when he was young and when he grew up, his parents were sort of well off, and the private school he went to actually had one of the earliest computer programs, and he would sneak out at night and go to the school and play on the computer, practice on the computer, and the number was 10,000 hours that he had invested on practicing before he actually started doing anything, right? And they find that, they understand how much time do we practice what we're going to say and our presentation before we have to do it. Now, I know a lot of real estate agents that will go on a listing appointment and wing it. Right? Now, if we invest a lot of time in lead generation and getting that appointment, shouldn't we have practiced what we're going to say so that we don't make mistakes? So when they say, give us 10 reasons to list with you, we're not running out at 4. Isn't that... knowing the exact right thing to say at the exact right time is critical to your success. For climbing mountains, you need a rope, harness, and carabiners, I guess. In real estate sales, you need scripts. Seasoned and successful agents practice them daily, keep them in sight as they make calls, and attribute their success to them. How many of you don't like scripts? Anybody that's again, we'll only have a few honest people that raise their hands. Do we have scripts, whether we call them that or not?
Yes.
If you have kids and they ask you a question that you've been asked before, do you have a script for what you say?
Yes.
When they say, can I have a cookie, do you know what to say?
Yes.
Right? Have you practiced? Right?
Different tones of voice.
Different tones of voice. So we all use scripts. The question is, and many of us will say, it's not me. Right? What are some of the reasons we don't like scripts? I guess leaked out the big one. It's not me.
Yeah, it sounds canned.
Sounds canned.
It's not in your own words.
It's not my
It's not
words.
authentic.
It's not authentic. Isn't that right? My words are better. Isn't that right? No? I can remember back a long time ago, since I told you how long I've been, in the 80s, I went through a real estate training program from a guy named Floyd Wickman. And Floyd had scripts. And I remember saying to myself, I don't know what to do now, so I'm going to learn his scripts. But soon I'll write my own, right? Because the way he talked and the questions he asked were not me. And I found 20 years later, when I'm at an open house, doing exactly the same thing that I did 20 years before, because his scripts worked. And when people would come in, I'd ask the same eight questions. I would have the same close. I would the same questions. Everything was the same, right? Did you understand that some of our top agents, every morning they have teams. Every morning they meet with their team and they go through script practice. Every day, 5 days a week, they do script practice.
That's great.
If you were a musician, would you practice scales? Right? Would you be practicing, right? So that we know, and we suggest that you try the scripts. And even if you have the idea that I'm going to write better ones later, sometimes we don't get around to writing the better ones later. To the uninitiative, using somebody else's words may seem awkward at first, and you may think, that's not me. Don't give up on the scripts until you've tried them. One of the things that I've noticed that separates successful people is their willingness to learn where to go, what to do, and what to say. Practice. So that when somebody asks the question, when they say, I want to think it over, right? You're at a listing appointment and you're asking them if they're ready to sign tonight, and they say, well, we'd like to think it over. You have two choices, really. One of them is you could say, well, okay, I understand. How long are you going to need? When should I call you back, right? The other one is to talk to them about that particular objection, right? If you don't get them to sign the listing when you're there, the chances of you getting them to sign the listing are dropping precipitously. Isn't that right? So would it be more effective for us to say, well, I understand how you feel. I understand how you feel. Most people in your situation would feel exactly the same way, right? This is a very big decision. I can understand why you'd want to think it over. Can I ask, what is it that you want to think about? Is it the price that you want to think about? Is it the marketing plan? Is it about getting your property ready? Would we rather, do you think they already know what it is they're thinking about? Would we rather that they talk to us about it at that point rather than leaving them alone? Right? So that requires knowing what to say when somebody brings up an objection. Right? Scripts. Top coaches insist you use scripts the way they're written because they're planned in advance the response. Tony DiCello, who's one of the MAPS coaches, that stands for our Mega Agent Productivity System coaches, says winging it doesn't work because there's no strategy in it. One of the other coaches that I had back in the 1980s, he suggested, his name was Mike Ferry. There's a Tom Ferry who's more popular now, that's his son. And Mike Ferry used to say, before a listing appointment, write out every question you think the seller will ask you. Right? If you were, pretend you're a seller, every question, think of every question that you would ask if you were going to sell your home. Think of every objection that you would give if you didn't want to list your home that night. And then once you've done that, go back through the list and go through every question and decide what is your answer going to be when they ask you, how long have you been in real estate? How many homes have you sold in our neighborhood? Right? What are you going to say? Right now, is it better that we just hope they don't ask us the question and just go and wing it?
No.
Or would it be better, does that sound like a good strategy? Or should we have an answer to that question before we go? If we don't have an answer to the question, what should we do?
Make it up. No,
Make
just
it
kidding.
up. How about ask somebody who's got more experience, what should I say?
You know, what else you could do is ask them why it's important to them, because if it's a broad question and you're not quite sure how to answer it, if you get them to hone in what's important to them, you might not need to answer it directly, but you could go about it another way.
Correct. One of the steps in handling objections, first of it is called the cushion, which is when you say, I understand how you feel. That's a very logical question, rather than saying that's a stupid question, right? Because then it's an adversarial. But the other one is to question it. So why is that important to you, right? What are you looking for, right? But then we still might, is it better for us to plan this out before we show up?
Definitely.
So here are some 4 scripts. One of them is new to real estate. Some of them are, one of them is for people that are new to Keller Williams, but not new to real estate. One of them is a remind people you're in real estate script. And the reason I mentioned that, I highlighted that one, is that many times I've had people come in and say, you know, well, I've got a bunch of people, but I haven't talked to them in 10 years, 5 years. I don't want to call them, right? So we actually have a script where you can remind people that you're in real estate. Does everybody, can you see of these 4, one that would fit you? Can everybody find one that would fit you? All right, so what we're going to do now, notice what I'd like you to do is to, in your mind at least, pick one, and we're going to practice the script. And it was perfect, right, that we have the right number of people in the room. Isn't that right? Because there's, why don't you two, can you two practice scripts? I'm sorry, don't have you?
Sure.
Yeah, with this,
Yeah, of course.
the 2 of you in the back. You guys have to pick which one wants to talk to Diana and which one wants to talk to Gina. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're really gonna do this. I'm not kidding. This is the audience participation part. What I'd like you to do is we're gonna take turns. So the one of you, the one that arrived here earlier than the other one will go first. And the one that was latest will go second. Does that sound like a good way to
I'll
do
go
it?
first then, huh?
All right, so we're gonna pair up. One of you pick Diana and
Well,
one of you
guys
pick
are
Gina.
sitting there, so you
Or
want
you could-
Cheryl? Yeah.
So we're gonna practice, pick the script that seems to most fit, and we're gonna practice it. That means I should hear talking and reading the, right now, just read the script, okay? The one that seems to fit.
To each other or just to ourselves?
No, to each other. So one of you is gonna, you have to practice saying it aloud, unless you can transmit information psychically.
You might.
Yeah,
One fit, but I made alterations to it. I'm not.
that's okay.
And so I've already, can I do it?
That
that
you
way,
can do
practice
what you
it the way-
want.
Okay.
I'm not,
Okay.
So what did we think of those scripts? Anybody have any thoughts, feelings, attitudes, suggestions?
I thought they were really good scripts. The part where I got uncomfortable was on, great, can we talk about how you can help me grow my business? Like, who do you know, your friends, your family who might be
Mhm.
thinking about buying or selling a house? Do you think you can introduce those people to me? Like that part, I'll have to I mean, I know I can say it, but actually saying, like, making a business phone call, like, I found that, like,
Right.
I know I'm going to do it, but in the moment, like, I can say it in passing to anybody, open house, I can say those kinds of things, but it's like when I'm calling like a friend.
How much of real estate business do agents get through family, friends, coworkers, and referrals from them?
Oh, that's a good question.
Does anybody know?
25%.
That's one vote. Anybody else have a guesstimate?
I say lower, I say like 10%.
Maybe 10%?
I think it's huge.
So according to the National Association of Realtors, when they interview buyers and sellers, which they do every year, they did, they released their statistics for 2014. The numbers don't change that much from year to year, but one of the questions they asked is, how did you find the real estate agent you worked with? And for sellers, it was 38%, I believe. 38% of them said that they were referred by a family, friend, or coworker, and over 40% of buyers said they were referred by a family, friend, or coworker. The number one way in which real estate agents make a connection and get a client is through their sphere or center of influence. Number one way.
How many buyers, percentage?
It was 41 or 42% for buyers and 38% for sellers.
So the friend becomes like a referral partner.
Like a
So you're
referral
not
partner.
saying, oh, when you're ready
Yeah.
to buy, what,
Or-
if you have a friend that you like and trust.
They were either
Right.
a friend, family, coworker, or were referred by. So,
And
yeah, correct.
I was gonna say, one of the ways you can make that really flow, really comfortable for somebody is tell them about the difference between February and March and how the real estate market picks up. And then go into, I'm new, I moved over to Keller Williams and blah, 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 blah. And this is the time when people are putting their houses up. Hey, do you know anybody who's interested or selling or buying? And that way you're inferring, can you help me? And this is the time people are doing it. You might know somebody who's doing it. Can you help me with some names?
Right. And how about this? Would people be, if I said to somebody, the way people in my business come to know of people buying, selling, or investing in real estate is through people referring them to us, right? Referrals is the lifeline of my business. I have set a goal this year to help 12 families buy or sell real estate. And I was wondering, would you help me with that goal? Would you help me build my business?
Okay, I like
Right, using the phrase helping me build my business or helping me reach my goal of helping X number of families get what they want in real estate may be a better way to approach it. Now, I've had agents say to me, people that were new, I'm not going to talk to my friends, my family, my coworkers. I'm not going to talk to the people I know. I don't want to bug them. I don't want to bother them. I don't want to do it. And my response generally is your chances for succeeding in real estate have just dropped dramatically, right? Because you've just removed the number one way in which real estate agents do business. if you were able to find 10 people that would refer 2 people a year to you, how would you be doing in our market?
Fantastic.
Exceptionally well.
Exceptionally well. Even, let's say, 20 people or 30 people that would refer 1 person to you. But, do you understand? You would be doing exceptionally well. And when you talk to top agents and ask them, how do you get your business? They're going to say repeat and referral, right? That's where they get most of their business from. So how do you get there, right? This is one of the places that we need to start.
Got it.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, that remains.
All right. So what I'd like to do is we're going to move to, how about 1-20? So how many of you feel comfortable now that you'd be willing to call somebody? Yes?
Comfortable, yeah.
Really? How many people feel comfortable you'd be willing to call somebody? That's it, just not everybody. So, what we're, 1-20, sphere of influence, all the people you know, trust you, and may do business with you. So one of the suggestions is, and what we're going to do is on our next break, is that there's a suggestion that you take out your phone and we call 3 people. Right? How many of you have, how many of you have your cell phone with you? Right? Some people don't.
I'll have it tomorrow.
He really doesn't. So what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a minute? How about this? And with the script that you've practiced, let's call somebody. Can everybody call 1 person? Now, by the way, I don't care if it's your mother and you're saying, look, I'm in a class and they're making me call somebody. So, but I'd like us to get through to break through the first. Let's all make and talk to 1 person and using the script that we've been practicing. Is that all right? You all said I asked who was willing to make a call and everybody raised their hand. So what that would mean is we take out our cell phones. Right? I don't have mine on me. We take out our cell phones. We find a number that we could call. We have our script ready. We call them.
The thing is that I generally speak Mandarin to others.
That would be fine. See, we won't, well, some of us may know what you're saying. All right?
What language?
You're calling the dry cleaner and
I
ask you. So that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine.
Let's all call and talk to 1 person. Go ahead. Just jump in.
Dial and call?
Yeah, right now. Right now. The fact that there's other people talking in the background just makes it sound like
Yeah,
you're
it's
at
actually
work.
easier.
It makes it sound like you're at work. So just go ahead. Guys are really quiet callers.
I didn't pick up.
Okay. I can let you go. I have Joetta calling me right now.
Hello. Yeah. 我也来给 real estate 的 class，然后那个 instructor forced us to 打电话给一个人，告诉他们我现在是 real estate agent，然后让你 refer friend 给我。那就他没什么什么，就是让我打个电话告诉你，就是我现在开始做 real estate agent 了，然后如果你以后有朋友了，或者你自己想买房子，还是记得帮我找，告诉我。Thank you.
Hi Francisco, habla Diana Estrada, ¿cómo estás? Fue
Ya,
un
pues,
placer pasar por su casa.
我是考才来，我想来打小朋友，我一直很给。
Llámame cuando tengas el momento que que
培训
contarles
北中
un,
国决定就是方来的，就等 工作。
Hey, how you doing?
nuevos,
在历
I'm
来
doing alright, so I'm, I
Paso la
told you I was
palabra.
taking
Sí,
this
yo no
night
quiero.
class.
So how did that go?
I've got 2 leads.
You got 2 leads.
Yeah,
Wow.
from people that I actually know, so
Awesome.
that's like, yeah.
2 leads. Anybody else? Was it easy, hard?
I think it's easier to talk to people you're pretty close to because they are very willing to help you. I think for me the most difficult part is talk to someone who is not that close but you know them. And
Right.
then, yeah.
But and why is it harder to talk to them?
Cause I'm not sure whether they are willing to help you. Cause I tried that. Actually, when I got the lessons, I talked to one friend that I know.
Mhm.
We are not very close. I say, yeah, I just got the real estate lessons, and if you have friends or you want to buy a house, you can come to me. And they were just like, oh yeah, yeah. And then later they will talk about say, oh, I know a real estate agent, blah blah blah. So
Right.
you know.
Any other thoughts about this?
My dad was happy when I called my dad. He was like, his voice totally changed. I mean, he was just waking up, and then when I told him I moved my license here, he was like really excited. Like that was like cool.
Good.
That was good news.
So any other?
I think that's to be expected though. Everybody knows a real estate agent, but you
Yeah.
know, but I think also people, and we were having that conversation, is that people like to help you. You know, kind of put yourself in your own position. If I was a friend of yours or an acquaintance, and I called you to ask you for help, even if you couldn't, you'd remember that person, you know, or they'd now have it in the back of their mind. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing is reminding people. Like sometimes, like this is a stupid example, but you know, someone might say, hey, do you know of a painter? And you're kind of racking your brain and you give a name and then you sleep on it and you're like, oh shoot,
Yeah.
you remember your friend is a painter or whatever, a good friend or business acquaintance is a friend who is a painter. So if they're not in front of you and at top of mind, then you're not likely to get those referrals. But if you kind of give them a reminder every now and then and stay at top of mind, and that's why it's good to stay in touch and give the market information and that type of
Yeah,
thing.
that's really good. That's a good point. How about can anybody name a potato chip brand?
Lay's.
Lay's. What's another one?
Kettle.
Doritos.
Kettle, Doritos. Another. Notice the drop off that just occurred. Right. How about running shoes? Can somebody name Nike and another?
Adidas.
Adidas, another.
Reebok,
Brooks.
Asics.
Some people have certain categories. Some people are better at than others.
Where there's more.
Where there's more, but
That's
there's
right.
actually a lot of potato chips as well. So, but is it possible that we only can hold a few responses at any one time for something, right? And so, if we were given more time, usually when you ask somebody to name a potato chip or to name a running shoe or to name a soft drink, right, that you get the first 2 or 3 quickly, and then you can actually see people, like, you know, thinking to find the 4th and the 5th. So, of the people that you know, if they were asked to name a real estate agent, how many of them would name you first, or second, or third, right? Where do we want to be on this list?
Top.
First.
We want to be
Top of
first.
mind.
Right, we want to be first. Now, this statement, by the way, I was told once I shouldn't say this, but I don't know. I may say it anyhow. First, let me just ask the question of some of you that have been in the business a while, have you ever had the experience of somebody that you know that you would consider in your sphere of influence that's bought a home or sold a home or invested in real estate without using you as an agent? Has anybody had that experience?
I did.
All right. Now, I once said in a class that if you haven't, you will, and somebody complained. They said, well, that's negative thinking. You know, if you haven't, that may happen to you. How about that? It may happen to you. So why didn't they contact you?
My friend told me because she knew how she was going to be during the transaction, so she didn't want to like get mad at me or something or get mad. It was like a very interesting, kind of made sense.
It kind of makes sense. And by the way, isn't that when somebody says, I have a friend in the business,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that an answer to that objection? Right.
It is,
It could be,
could be.
Yeah.
right? Because what if things go wrong? Do you want to lose your friend at the same time you're buying a house or selling a house, right? That is an answer to the objection. But why else wouldn't they have, other than the fact that they knew they were going to be difficult?
The first time it happened to me, it was a friend of my husband's, and we kind of took him around, we were looking at stuff, and he was like, oh yeah, I definitely want to work with you. Next day he went to work, his boss referred him to his boss's girlfriend, who's a real estate agent. He went with the boss's girlfriend instead of me.
Right.
Office politics.
Office politics.
Yeah, he was like, if I refuse that, it's gonna be all bad. So,
But it happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
It
she
happens.
sold him, half the value that he wanted, wrong neighborhood, he's not 100% happy, so.
Right.
That was a couple of years ago.
So what could we have done, you have done that would have prevented that from happening?
Not much.
I don't know, I mean, cause that was office politics, I didn't wanna push him on that.
Okay. So let's say if when you met with him originally, and one of the things that I used to, I believe in buyer agreements. Supposing when you met with them, one of the things that I would do, even if it was a relative that was selling their home or buying a home or somebody that I knew very well, I would say, well, at this point, we're in a professional relationship, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat you professionally just like I would anyone else. Is that okay? Right? You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to cut corners. We're not going to short you. We're going to do the full professional thing. How does that sound? Right? They say, okay, great. So and we're going to talk about this in another class, but I always used an agreement. Right? And there's various versions of the buyer broker agreement. The California Association of Realtors has 3 forms, 2 of which involve discussion of commission, none of which are, in my opinion, very good. I use something called the buyer service pledge, which basically, with Keller Williams, we called it sometimes a buyer loyalty agreement. And basically what it does is it lists all the things that I'm going to do for you to help you buy a house. I called mine a service pledge. And then underneath it, there was a paragraph that said, in consideration for all of these services, I agree to work with you exclusively during the term of this agreement. Now, if your friend, your husband's friend or whatever had signed a written agreement, could that have given him an out when he was talking to his boss?
Yes.
Yeah, that could've.
Right. I'm sorry, gee, I wish I had known. I already signed an agreement to work with somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? I've signed an agreement.
Yeah.
I
got money on it.
Why not?
You know, the buyer, buyer always change a lot of money.
And I don't want to
Always?
work with them.
Yeah, I see a lot of buyer because they see, oh, this house, maybe this agent is better than this agent because if he buy in a lot of family, maybe local agent better than other can get. Or you buy San Jose, maybe this agent better than this one. So they use you, not it's just a loyalty. I see a lot of people like this.
So, in other words, we have a lot we have to overcome, the stigma of being real estate agents.
Right. Well, I don't know. The thing is that most people like their real estate agent. Most people are happy. Most buyers and sellers are happy with the results they got. So the point about this is that sure there are some people that aren't going to, that may not want to work with you. But what I've found is that the reason that most people don't sign buyer broker agreements or buyer loyalty agreements or buyer agreements is because the agent has not explained what's in it for them to do so. Usually, typically, the way a real estate agent presents an agreement like this is, I don't want to waste my time showing you homes and then have you not buy from me, so I want you to sign this contract obligating you to work with me. How does that sound? Right? And people say, well, no, why should I do that? Right? But if I could explain that you're going to end up getting more house for less money, that you're going to end up getting a better deal than you would have without this agreement, then, in other words, if I give them reasons what's in it for them to do it, the chances of getting them to sign it are much higher. right? But most agents do not know how to explain why it's in their client's best interest to have an agreement with one agent.
So is a signing buyer's agreement is prevalent?
Yes, it's preferred. Now, not everybody does it.
I've been buying houses twice and no agent asked me.
No agent has asked, because none of them have gone through my training program, right? So not all of our experienced agents do this, I'll admit that. But one of the agents, that we have a mentoring program, and so one of the agents went through my training program who met with a client with his mentor. The mentor does not use a buyer agreement, right? The new agent pulls out the agreement, which we're gonna share with you, and starts going through it with the guy, and the guy says, oh, well, no, we were actually planning on using somebody we knew to write up the offer, right? And so, by the way, I've done this with people where I go through the agreement and then I'm handing them the pen, and the wife looks at the husband and says, what about Joe? And I say, who's Joe? And Joe turns out to be a part-time agent that they know, who told them, go find a house, and when you're ready to write up the offer, come back to me and I'll do it and I'll split the commission with you. Right, you understand? I mean, so if I hadn't brought that up, then most agents don't even bring up the idea, even in a verbal context, that this is how we're going to work together. They just hope.
Yeah, if we can have a client to sign up for contract, that would be nice. That's nice security for us. If we are in the buyer side, of course.
Right. But you have to explain it. We'll talk about that. What's in it for them, right? If
Excuse me, but in right now, multiple offer. Like one example, I have a buyer to see the house for a long time, and help him how to move money to his account from China. And then he say, later on, he say he bought a house. I said, how come? He said, because I cannot get a house, I have to buy from agent.
Well, first of all, what you have to do, and this isn't the buyer class, so we're gonna, I'll answer this and then go on. What the mistake I believe that many real estate agents make, and sometimes buyers make, is that they're picking the agent based on the house, rather than picking the agent and finding a house. By the way, professional investors, and I've worked with people that were professional investors, they don't drive around to open houses. They don't call listing agents up. They're not setting up searches on the internet. Good professional investors have an agent that they know, like, and trust, that they've worked with, and the one that I did more than a dozen transactions with would call me up and say, this is what I'm looking for, find it and contact me. And the concept of the buyer broker is that what you have to convince people, if they had one agent who knew and understood well what they were looking for and was committed to helping them find it, that's better than having a bunch of agents that they're not as committed and don't know as much. And working with the listing agent, who does the listing agent represent?
Seller.
The seller. What is their listing agent's legal duty? To negotiate the highest price possible for the seller with the best terms for the seller.
Right.
Right? And even though the listing agent may kick back a little bit of their commission to do so, a study done by Sprint found that people that wrote up offers with the listing agent paid on average 7% more for the property than people that had their own agent represent them. So some people are thinking, I saved 2%, right? And paid 5 or 6% more than they might have had to pay, right, if they had their own agent. But this is something we're gonna talk about, all these different pieces. So your sphere of influence is, who do you know? Start with the immediate family, neighbors, relatives, friends, and then we're going to go outside of that. And the next, it says stop and do. This is sort of a homework assignment. One of the things that I oftentimes would give new agents in the coaching program is a stack of 100 5x8 cards, right? Index cards. And the assignment was write out 100 names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses of people you know. The goal is to find 100. Right? By the way, if you do this and contact all of those people, the chances of you writing up some business in the first 30 days has gone up dramatically. If you made 200, if you found 200 of those cards, the chances of doing something in the first 30 days have gone up a lot more. It's hard to quantify this. How many of you would like to sell a house in the first 30 days, the next 30 days? This is the most likely area where you're going to, the most likely way for you to do it. And we used to call this in the old days sort of the yellow page exercise. Right now, I know if you're young, you're thinking, what what's that? And so the way to think of the yellow pages, it was Yelp printed out on paper, right? That's essentially what it was. So who do you know? And the reason that we're doing this is, who do you know that's from your immediate family, teachers, home auto repair, personal services? Who do you know? Relatives, church members, other real estate agents if they're not from this area? And by the way, many real estate agents will not represent the buyer and the seller on the same transaction. Right? Does anybody know why many real estate agents won't represent a buyer if they have the listing?
Too much headache, conflicting of interest.
Conflict of interest. Chances of being successfully sued in court have gone up dramatically. Right? There's an old saying, it's hard to carry water on both shoulders. Right? It's hard to have a duty to represent the best interests of the, so I used to say to people, if you were getting divorced, would you use the same attorney your spouse was using? Why not? Why not? Think of the money you'll save, right? Isn't that
So I
right?
can get discount.
Right. Yeah, they give you a discount. Doctors, dentists, neighbors, past coworkers, bankers, other. So what you want to do is to come up with, you need to stop and think, who do you know? Everybody you know. The goal is to come up with 100. And we're going to want to use this to build a business database. Now, I've had people say, I don't know very many people. If I went to Facebook, how many people do you have as friends? Right? How many people do you have in your cell phone? If you were to export all of your cell phone numbers, how many would there be? If you went through your email system, how many people are in your email system? How many are in your contact database? Right? So, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Twitter. So what we want you to do is to block time as to when you're going to you need to get tomorrow I'm going to be doing the class on the database, and you won't see me, thank goodness, for a while. And what we want to do is to collect everybody that you know, and we want to put it in some central database so that you can follow up with the people, so you can contact them, so you can follow up with them. All right? And then this is just, I don't know, it could be done on a spreadsheet.
Do we have that in the Keller Williams? Is that a database like system in our schools
Yes.
or something? Okay.
So this is what the Keller Williams uses, a program called eEdge. And those of you that are at Keller Williams are going to get this software. So there's contacts, leads, marketing, email, transactions, action plans. There's a bunch of different types of marketing things. So under view contacts, it would show all of I have a lot. And this is a customer relationship management system. I have a lot. If you were to just click on add a contact, you'd fill out this form, including a place for reminders and comments. Now, if you only have 10 or 15 people that you know that you're following up with, you could probably just use the 3x5 cards. In fact, there's a great video in the Keller Williams system. There's a bunch of training videos, some that go along with Ignite. There's one called Gary and His Box, which is Gary and Keller in the database. And Gary Keller started at a time when people used to have cardboard boxes with 3x5 cards in them. And the market had gone up and then crashed. And he was looking to borrow money from his father. I don't know if anybody can relate to this. And his father was saying, well, what have you been doing? You know, have you been working? Have you been trying? And he went and got his box and he showed his father all of the contacts he had made, all of the follow-ups he had planned, and all the notes that he was written, and his father loaned him money based on the box, right? Based on his database. One of the guys that was interviewed in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, who I knew personally at Century 21, he was the #1 agent in Century 21, 10 years in a row, each year doing over $1 million in commission income with an average sales price of under $300,000. Right? He was closing close to 400 transactions a year. And when he retired after 10 years, he sold his practice for several $100,000 and a residual to another real estate agent. What did that agent buy? His database.
Wow.
How much would somebody pay you for yours?
Build it
Right.
up.
Right. And if the answer is nobody would pay me for mine, we need to get busy on this, right? So you need to start putting in your database, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Become a customer service professional. It's easy for me to say. So one of the things you need to be able to do is to explain why your package of services is something people would want to buy. Now, many times I've had people say, well, I'm new, I've never been in real estate before, I really don't have any experience. So let's think about that. Have you ever in a past career been involved in project management? Have you ever been involved in marketing, negotiations? Ever had to work on contracts, right? So are those transferable skills? Do you have a customer service background? Advertising or sales, right? Are those transferable skills? So what we want to do is come up with a professional resume that doesn't necessarily say, well, for 6 years I was this kind of an engineer at this company, because that doesn't really tell anybody what you did unless they understand what that kind of an engineer is. But to talk about what skills you used in that job that would be transferable in real estate, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Now, by the way, this is something that many people skip at the beginning. I wouldn't skip it. You're going to be asked repeatedly throughout our system, and this would be true everywhere you go, to give a professional resume. Think of this. You're doing LinkedIn for real estate, right? Do you understand in LinkedIn they have all those little skills? Right now, some of them you could say buying, selling, but there's a bunch of other skills that you're allowed to select that people can endorse you for, right? This is what we're working on now, right? You're going to make a LinkedIn profile for those of you social media conscious people. Would hobbies and interests be
Yes.
a useful thing? By the way, sometimes one of the agents that I trained a long time ago, she went through my real estate school and joined on this when I was working at Century 21. She'd come from outside Santa Clara County, and she remembered me talking about, the people you know versus the people you don't know. And I asked the question, which was the largest group, the people you know or don't know? And it was the people you don't know. And she didn't know anybody in Santa Clara County. And she told me, I talked to her recently, she had focused on working with people that she did not know. Right now, this particular person last year did a little shy of $2 million in commission income in Santa Clara County. And I know that 12 years ago, she was at zero without a referral base. Right? Now, hobbies and interests. Are there people that if you had a hobby or interest that you could come to know that you do not know, that share that hobby and interest?
Sure.
Right. So now, one of the agents that I coached became a marathon runner. She had a midlife crisis. I don't know if it was a crisis. All of us, she went from never working out at all, like never not having a gym membership or even knowing what that meant, to running marathons. She was not a sociable person. That's what she said, right? She became the top agent in our office, but was not a sociable person. And do you know that their marathon runners meet like every Saturday morning in Los Gatos to run up and down the trail? hundreds of them meet. Hundreds of them meet, right? So if you understand, if you were to think about, well, what interests, what hobbies do you have? Do you like gardening? Do you like cooking? Are there places you could go and meet people that share those hobbies and interests, right? This is something that we're going to talk more about when we get to people you don't know. Your big why. Does anybody know why they're in real estate? Anybody know why they're doing this? Don't everybody blurt it out at once. Anybody have you have one?
I wanted to de-stress my life from, high corporate sales, so I could spend time with my mother-in-law and my mother.
Your mother-in-law and your mother.
Yeah, 'cause one's 83 and the other one's 70.
Okay. So you said you wanted to
Spend time with family.
spend time with family. And what would that do for you?
Make me a happier, nicer person while I'm driving.
Make you a happier and nicer person while you're driving.
Yeah.
What effect would that have on your life?
It'd make it more enjoyable.
It'd make your life more enjoyable.
Yeah, have memories to last forever.
Memories
Mhm.
to last forever. And then and how would that impact you?
Just make me a happier person.
Make you a happier person.
That's
Okay.
all that matters.
Now, I don't know, does anybody else have one that yes, Diana?
I want to, my daughter, my little girl, she's 6 years old, and she wants me to pick her up from the door after school, and that just makes her happy when I do surprise her when I'm able to do that,
So you want to be able to pick your daughter up
and take her to Disneyland.
and take her to Disneyland. How would that affect your life?
Like, it would dramatically affect my life, cause she's gone on lots of vacations with her father and not with me. Lots of vacations with her father.
So what's important to you about that then is?
Is that she has an experience of being on an airplane, going to the airport, being with mom, and that mom can do those things too.
And showing her that mom could do those things, what would that do for you?
Make me cry.
Make you cry?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
The big why for me is actually, I'm transitioning from medical sales to real estate. And what I found in my medical sales is I started having huge territories. I'd cover all of Northern California. And I went from covering like San Jose over the course of 23 years to getting to a point where I was covering all of Northern California. And what I wanted to, the reason why I wanted to make the transition is I knew that I couldn't have the types of relationships that I had built in a smaller territory that with what I was doing at the level I was doing it at. I just couldn't create that kind of dynamic where people would, when they saw me, were happy to see me because I had built a relationship over time. And it was really hard to build trust with somebody that you had to drive 5 hours to see, or you had to get them interested in the process. And it's just a lot easier to engage people when you're closer by. And you can still feel like you're doing a great job for somebody, but not having all that. I mean, I couldn't fly to Reading. I had to drive there, and I had like 5 clients there. It was ridiculous. Anyways, that's why I'm doing it. I think the quality of life is great too, and I think it's wonderful that you have flexibilities, knowing that you're probably always going to be on to some extent when you're a realtor, because you don't want somebody to not get you and pick up the phone and call somebody else, right?
Right.
But also having that flexibility to have that quality of life for pick up your daughter after school, afford a trip or whatever. That's always nice.
Did you?
Yeah, for me, I worked for corporation for 20 years as a the engineer marketing guy, and very dedicated. Probably I traveled mostly international trade, 1/3 of my time traveling. And my first one, now he's 18, going to college this year. And looking back, I didn't spend much time with him
Yeah.
because I was so dedicated. I worked until 7, 8 p.m. every day. And now, I'm in the position where I continue that career or do something else. And like everybody else, I always dreamed of having my own business, never realized it, and I don't know how difficult it is. But so a few things, which make me, pursue this career. I'm, by the way, I just passed the exam, so I don't know
Alright,
what-
congratulations.
So first of all, yeah, I'm gonna do my own business. Second is term is on mine. It is my term, not the working for somebody else. And it's a local job. I don't want to travel that much anymore. Really, all those spending time doing for company, not for myself. So those and I like buildings. I like houses. I like gardens. So maybe this is good for me.
Why is it important that we focus on this?
You have to like your job.
Yeah.
Motivated.
Motivating?
When it gets tough, we gotta remember the why. Oh, this is why I'm doing it, cause there are challenging times, and then it's like, oh, yes, so I can take my daughter on a vacation.
Yes.
Fly on that airplane.
So a couple of points. Did some of you recognize with some of you when we started, I was asking, so what would that mean? What would be the impact of that? What's important to you about that? That's sort of what you need to do. That is what you need to do when you're talking to buyers and sellers, right? When you're talking to clients and you say, well, why are you, motivation for buyers and sellers is probably the most important factor in your ability to work effectively with them. And if you ask somebody, well, why are you thinking about buying a house at this time? They say, well, we want something bigger, right? And rather than just saying, oh, that's okay, good, write that down. Well, what's that going to do for you? Why is that important to you? Is there a potential that there's going to be conflict and problems in their path to buying a home? Sometimes and the more they have their why in their mind, the more likely they are to get through that, right? And a lot of times people don't really know what it is. Well, I want a bigger house, so, and after a while, they end up with the real why, and the fact that you helped them discover it creates a bond with you that's a lot stronger than just being the order taker agent. You understand? Most real estate agents, I'm going to use this metaphor again, are like wallpaper, right? You understand? Wallpaper is like a pattern that's just repeated over and over again, and the agents all look like they're part of the same pattern. Right, and that's why many people believe it doesn't matter which agent you use, they're all pretty much the same. So one way for you to stand out from the wallpaper is to act differently from all the other agents. If you do what everybody else does, then it's very difficult to convince people that you're different, special, or have any services different from everyone else. And going through the 7 levels, like if you were to, when somebody gives you their why, their motivation, to ask 7 questions to see if you can get 7 levels. So why is that important to you? Well, what would that do for you? Well, what would that mean to you? Or what would that look like? You'll find that you'll go a lot deeper and will create a better connection with them than you will if you just write down larger house, right?
Yeah.
4 bedrooms, right?
Yeah, I did that once with I did that, but on one time the client, she didn't really know. I thought it was just to get a condo, her next house. And then, her car got broken into, so then the more levels that I was diving deeper into, it turns out that she wanted to have the security of the house because she was she was sick.
Right.
And so she needed to have the house and the equity, and she just needed that security. But it went from just buying a place to oh, my car just got robbed, I need to move out of this place, to her house was not just about moving out of this, getting robbed, but it was really about another level of security.
Right. I refer to this as the dominant buying motive, right? And a lot of times people miss it. I've heard agents say to people, you don't want to see that condo because the homeowner association fees are so high, right? Now, there are reasons why homeowner association fees are high. And sometimes it means that there's more security. there's probably a direct relationship between the security of the complex and the homeowner association fees. Right? You understand? The ones that are cheapest are usually worse in terms of their maintenance, not taking care of. Does everybody understand where I'm going with this? So
Yeah.
we can't just assume that what's important to us is important to them. We need to go through this process of asking them questions, right?
Sure.
So would it help you to go through this process with yourself and asking yourself, so I want to sell real estate because I want freedom, well, what's that going to mean for me? What's that going to do? Why is that important? And when we get to what we call the big why, we're going to talk about a vision board, which is some of our agents, if you look in the windows in their offices, these are usually successful people, you'll see that they have little boards up with pictures on them, right? For example, going to Disneyland, could you find pictures? In other words, visual representations. So there's a saying that we use in Bold. Bold is one of our advanced coaching programs that this is simple but not easy. Does everybody understand? Selling real estate is
Yeah.
simple but not easy. And when we get up in the morning to do the things, success is doing the things that unsuccessful people don't want to do. Isn't that really it? Right? And by the way, let me just say this about, we were talking about sphere of influence. People don't do business with people they know. They do business with people they know that ask them to do business. That's where I was getting at when we're talking about sphere of influence, right? Because a lot of times we might think, I've had people say, well, they know I'm in real estate. I'm sure they're going to call me, right? Have you ever had it? One of the guys that I coached he had a friend who he refers to as Trader Tim, right? He's known Tim for more than 10 years, and Tim bought a house, sold his house without using him as an agent. And when I went through, how many times did you talk to Tim about real estate? How many conversations did you have? And the answer was none, right? But somebody else that knew Tim did, right? It wasn't. Does everybody understand that to do that may require that we're focused on what our big why is? Know the value you provide. There's something called the value proposition. What is the knowledge, attitude, skills, and belief that you have? We have some sample ones here. And this would be like an elevator speech. If somebody you met in an elevator, you're riding an elevator, you have a minute or two, and they said, why should I work with you? This, by the way, in your LinkedIn profile would be that little statement that you can put next to your name, right? This would be something that you could put on a website. It could be something you could put on the back of a business card. It's called the value proposition. A general one would be, I offer personal and professional service for all your real estate needs, including getting your home sold, helping you find the home of your dreams in less time with less hassle, which helps you get what you desire with ease. Chris Heller, who is one of the top Keller Williams agents, and now, by the way, has been promoted. I believe he's the CEO of Keller Williams. He's been promoted recently. This was his value proposition. As your agent, I will be at your side from listing to closing, ensuring that your property sells smoothly and you get the most money possible. By the way, those of you who are looking, we're on, what page are we on?
29.
29. To determine an optimum pricing strategies your property will sell, I dig deep to learn the unique selling points of your property and neighborhood so my marketing plans and strategies effectively target and attract your potential buyers. It's a formula for success for you. How many of you work for a company that had a mission statement, a vision statement, a value statement,
Yeah.
right?
Position, value statement, yeah.
So what's yours? What's your mission, vision, value proposition?
I like that one.
Right? Well, that's you're welcome to. He's not using it anymore.
Oh.
So power words are words that seem to have more power when used. This is just something to think about. But one of your stop and do's, one of your assignments, we're not going to do this right now for time reasons, but you should. By the way, when somebody says to me, I've done everything you've asked me to do, I might take out the Ignite manual and we'll stop at each one of these and said, do you have a value proposition? one of the parts of my coaching program that I expect somebody to have is a value proposition that they could articulate to someone else. I found that people that are willing to go through the process of determining their value proposition and memorizing it so that they could say it to someone else are far more likely to engage in conversations,
That makes
right?
sense.
Far more likely to engage in conversations. So, by the way, in addition to that, what's it also this would be something you could put on your website. So in addition to that, when we talked about statistics, remember I pulled up the MLS? We looked at how many sales there were. You could break it down by area. Every once in a while I do that for the people that I'm coaching. What I did recently for people that are in my coaching program is I created a This Month in Real Estate, which is a newsletter that we can send out to people. It's a Keller Williams newsletter that talks about what's happening to the median price and the number of sales. Now, the reason why knowing this is important, what is the number one question somebody's going to ask you when they find out you're in real estate?
How's the
How's
real
the
estate
market?
market?
So how's the real estate market? Right now, when I asked people what was the median price of a home in Santa Clara County, nobody knew the answer in the room.
Not since December, I've been looking
Not
at
since December.
it.
Yeah.
Well, you asked Santa Clara County.
Sir.
If you were to ask me the area that I'm focusing on, I could tell you the median price is 1.3.
1.3, that's good.
Yeah.
So it might be, that would be, so I'm sorry I was talking about Santa Clara County. Would it be good for you to know how your area is doing compared to Santa Clara County? Right. And so first of all, I like the fact that she has an area. Right, we're gonna talk about that. You can't know everywhere at once. Right, you understand San Jose is too big to know. Right, even the agents that have been in the business a long time do not know all of San Jose. It's too big. It's difficult for me to know Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Alameda County, and Santa Cruz County. I'm not saying I've never sold homes there, but I generally would try to refer business to somebody who already knows the area. Right? Did everybody understand where I'm going with this? Rather than me learning San Mateo County, if I spent that time working on getting business where I'm focused and referred it to somebody who already knows San Mateo County, is it likely that the client's going to get better service? And if I I took that time that I would had to have spent learning it and focused on what could I do with it? What would be one thing I could focus on?
Lead generation.
Lead generation. I might be further ahead. So lead generation is job number one. The lead generation pipeline. This is on page 1-33. So we want to track our numbers. One of my mentors used to use the phrase, he said, count your figs. And what he meant by figs were figures.
Oh,
One of the things you'll see in Keller Williams is that we're very much into knowing your numbers. We had every once in a while at our team meeting, and by the way, tomorrow at 11:30 is a team meeting. For those of you that aren't part of Keller Williams, or even if you would like to come and sit through a team meeting just to see what it's like, you're welcome to do so. 11:30 tomorrow. One of the things we were doing at team meetings, this was like a surprise thing. We were giving away a prize for somebody that had contacted the most for sale by owners. Right, this was not announced in advance. So one agent, three people raised their hand saying they'd contacted for sale by owners. That's it, right, in the last week. One of them said 2 or 3. One of them said 12. And the guy who won said 44. That's how many, right? Now, first of all, he also has, by the way, a private office, right, with an assistant. He knew how many people he had talked to, right? Knew the number, right? Now, do you understand why this could be important? If you keep track of how many people do you contact, and how many contacts equal an appointment, and how many appointments equal an agreement, and how many agreements equal a check, right?
Sure.
Then you have something to build on. Also, you can find weak spots. right? It seems like you need 8 appointments to get somebody to sign an agreement. Maybe we ought to talk about what you're saying in your consultation, right? So leads, captures, appointment schedules, agreement signed, contracts written and closed out. So let's say that out of 200 leads, 1 in 10 move to an appointment. That's typical. 200 leads, you get 1 and 10. That's a big spread. It depends on who you're talking to and how you're talking to them, right, as to what that percentage could be. Some studies that we've done at Keller Williams show that in California, you may have to talk to 100 to 150 people by knocking on doors to get a listing. Right? 100 and 150. Now, one of the agents who goes around doing seminars now, his first year at Keller Williams, this is in Danville, he earned over $500,000 his first year in commission income. Over $500,000 first year. And he knocked on doors 6 hours a day, right? For his 5 days a week for his first year. Now remember when we took a 40-hour work week and multiplied it by 80% to find out, and then divided by 5, that was 6.4 hours a day. So even at 6 hours a day, you understand, he was actually doing an 80% focus on a 40-hour work week. All right? Right? Made over 500,000. Now, a lot of people are going to say, I don't want to knock on doors. Well, he had a big why, right? He had a strong motivation. So that doesn't mean that's the only thing you could do, but you understand a typical rate is you need to know how many leads are going to lead to an appointment, how many appointments result in an agreement, and how many agreements result in a sale. How many leads you need? It says a lot. Yeah, a lot. I'm on, I don't know. We're on page 35.
35, that's what I want.
Moving right along. Is that where I'm supposed to be, 35?
Habits?
No, let's go, yeah, 30, I was on 33. Ignites focuses on prospecting, so then 34, we talk about METs, haven't METs, prospecting and marketing. Let's do that before we get into it. METs are people you know. I would say we used to call that center of influence or sphere of influence. We call it METs at Keller Williams. Anybody that recognizes you, right, whether you know their name or not. Right? If the postal worker waves at you, you know them. Right? You have some level of rapport. Haven't METs are, by the way, the millionaire real estate agent, we're going to talk tomorrow about databases and follow-up systems. And the millionaire real estate agent, the millionaire real estate agents were doing 2 transactions for every 12 people they had in their METS database each year. 2 for every 12 people they had in their database each year when they were using a good follow-up system. 2 out of 12. So do you understand, you don't need, in order to do 12 transactions, how many people would you need? About 70?
72.
72, something like that?
Yeah.
Real people,
Once you get started,
once you get
you
some.
can keep the engine.
2 out of, you get 2 for every 12.
Yeah.
So even if you were doing it 1 for every 10 and you wanted 12 transactions, you need 120 people in your database. Right? Not a huge number. People that you haven't met, you need to talk to more of them. The ratio is 50-1 in the millionaire real estate agent. People that they're following up with. Prospecting is where you go and find people, and marketing is when you get them to call you. Prospecting is the least expensive and most effective way of finding clients. Marketing is expensive, but it creates people in calling us. Now, what we suggest at the beginning is that you spend your time talking to people, one-on-one or in person. One-on-one or in person, that's the same thing. On the phone, in person. Right? Email is not personal contact.
No.
Isn't that right? Real estate is a contact sport. How about that? Right. So marketing is when you get people to call you. Now, one of my metaphors is that prospecting is the way sharks eat. right? A shark swims around, sees something, chases it down. Many real estate agents use the clam system. You know how clams eat? They lay on the beach with the shell open and they wait for something edible to wash in. Isn't that, have you seen agents that are waiting for something edible to wash in? Lead generation is about prospecting. At first, it's active. You take action to reach clients, phone calls, handwritten notes, or in-person visits, whereas marketing is passive, the shark versus the clam. It's about, we're talking about prospecting. We actually are going to have a session coming up later this week just on the subject of prospecting. The 4 habits, the Daily 10-4. It says in the second paragraph, he got into real estate as an independent business person. And you plan to be, does everybody, every business has 2 parts to it. If I were a dentist, part of being a dentist is knowing how to work on people's teeth. But the other part is I have to have patience. If I were a lawyer, part of being a lawyer, do you know what the number one thing they promote lawyers for? In a different life, I went to law school in a totally different life. It's a repressed memory. The number one way to get promoted as a partner in a law firm, does anybody know what that is? Number one way.
Cases?
Bringing clients to the firm, right? They care more about that than how often you win, right? If you don't win, if you're a terrible lawyer, they'll get somebody else to go to trial for you. The way you become a senior partner is you bring in clients. Right? Does that when you think about it,
Lead generation.
right? That's the number one way to get promoted as an attorney. So do you understand, even attorneys, part of it is being an attorney, but part of it, the bigger part, is getting clients. Isn't it all about getting clients? Most people who start out in real estate don't make it. Right? That's a true statement. And the reason is, among others, that real estate is too easy to get into. Right? I mean, really. I mean, too easy to get out of. How many of you know people that left the real estate business? Is there any stigma? Do people spit on them or look down on them? No, the world is full of ex-real estate agents, and it's too optional while you're in it. Right? Now, my father was an orthopedic surgeon, and by the way, he resented one year when I made more money than he did. Right? He resented that, and logically I could understand why, because. Well, I think you might guess why he would resent that. But if you go to medical school, are you going to become a doctor with the attitude, I'll try it for 6 months, right? I'll give it 90 days. I don't really know if I want to hang around sick people all the time, right? You know, moaning and complaining. I'm not sure it's for me. I'll try it for 6 months, maybe a year, and if I don't like it, I'll go do something else. You wouldn't do that because it took so long to get through medical school. You were going to be a doctor, right? And if it was rough and hard and you didn't like it at first, you would stick it out because you had invested so much time, money, and effort in order to get there. But real estate is really easy to get into, right? Which makes it really easy to get out of. So, and it's like, one of the metaphors is like pushing a railroad car on a track, right? There's no train to push it or pull it. We're pushing it with our hands. Do you understand? While the railroad car is sitting, stationary, it takes a lot of push to get it to move, right? The ratio of push to movement is really, really high. But once it starts to move, it doesn't take as much push to keep it to moving. And the faster it moves, the less push is required, and at some point it reaches momentum where you can sit on the railroad car and ride without pushing at all. Does everybody see how this relates to real estate? At the beginning is when it's hardest, right? This is when you need to push hard. And by the way, I would suggest for at least 90 days. There's a 90-day rule. I don't know if you've ever heard the 90-day rule. The 90-day rule is that whatever we're doing now is probably going to have an effect in 90 days. How long does it take to develop a habit?
21.
21?
Yeah.
28? Those numbers, by the way, came from 21 and 28, came from treatment centers, right? Usually drug, alcohol, and others. And do you know how they came up with those numbers? That's the amount of time insurance would pay for. Right? That's how they came, and there was no evidence that that was successful. Gary Keller wrote his most recent book is called The One Thing. And one of the things that he does in The One Thing is they analyze studies that were done on how long it takes people to develop a habit. The average was 66 days. 66 days was the average. Right? First we work for our habits, then they work for us. Right?
Yeah.
So, and it depends upon the person, it depends on what you're doing. So let's say 90 days. If we did something for 90 days, would we have a greater chance of developing a habit?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So if I told you we expected you to do this forever, some of you might say, well, I don't want to do this forever. But could you make a commitment to do it for 90 days? One of the questions that I've been asked in the really long time I've been doing this, people always say, well, can I be successful in real estate? Am I going to be successful in real estate? How would you know if I'm going to be successful in real estate? And I boiled it down to two things. Are you interested? Two things that determine whether or not somebody's going to be successful in real estate. Number one is they have to have a desire to do it. Back to the big why. And the desire has to be sufficient to result in a commitment for a long enough period of time to produce results. Desire equals commitment for a long enough period of time to produce results. I ask people this question, how many of you want to be successful in real estate? Right? You can raise your hands. How many of you are willing to do whatever it takes? Right? People raise their hands, right? Because it's easy to raise your hand, right? But do what it needs to be done for 90 days, right? Commitment. The second factor, by the way, that I've found that makes people determines their success is a willingness to learn. Right? A desire and a willingness to learn. If you have those two things, you could be successful in real estate. By the way, very little else seems to be important. Education, looks, intelligence, background, right? You understand? Virtually, of all the factors, those are the two that determine people's success. So, I'm sort of, I don't know, what are the four things we're supposed to be doing for 90 days? The four habits. One is build and manage your database. Now it says you've already started because there was an exercise about your cell phone, email, Facebook, LinkedIn, getting all of your contacts together, right? Tomorrow we're going to talk more about that. 2 is prospect, follow up, and know your market. Now we call this, we being at Keller Williams, the Daily 10-4. And the Daily 10-4 is, 1, to build and manage your database. Add 10 people to your database every day. This is 5 days a week. Add 10 people to your database 5 days a week. Get into the habit of building your database. The guy that I knew from Century 21 who's interviewed in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, in fact, in some of our courses you'll see his picture. His name was Jim Droz, D-R-O-Z, and he's the guy that sold his database for hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And he added people every time he met. Everyone you meet, everyone he met, he put in his database, right? Ask for their contact information. Prospect means to connect with 10 people a day. That would mean calling people that you already know, calling people you don't know. Door knocking. There's also store. I don't know if you ever heard of store knocking. You've heard of door knocking.
Never heard of store.
Store knocking. Supposing I'm a real estate agent and I call up somebody that has they're painters. And I say to them, hi, my name is Mike, I'm with Keller Williams Realty. I see you have a painting business. From time to time, I'm going to have people that will be in the need of a professional painter. Can I ask you a question? Are you accepting new clients at this time? What are they going to say? Yeah, yeah, great. I'd like to stop by, maybe introduce myself. Perhaps we could work together in the future. Would it be okay if I drop by for 5 minutes, introduce myself, found out about your services? Would that be okay? What's the chance that they're going to agree to this?
99.9.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Who else would fall into this category? Who will know people that might want to buy or sell real estate?
Mortgage,
Mortgage companies,
title companies.
title companies,
Financial services.
financial services,
Yeah.
certified financial planners. They talk to people that are thinking about investing. Do attorneys ever run across? What kind of attorneys?
Divorce.
Divorce. Think of that. 1 sale and 2 buyers. Isn't that what happens? Oh, all right. Only one of them can afford to buy afterwards. But what? Right.
Or to sell the house.
1 sale
One buy.
and 1 buyer. Yeah, because the other guy's sleeping on a couch at his friend's house. So, who else? Probate lawyers. Right.
House
So
cleaners.
what?
House cleaners.
House cleaners.
Well, that would be like a store.
Yeah, house cleaners. Landscapers. What?
State.
Immigration company.
Immigration companies. Are there a lot of businesses that would overlap with real estate, right? Who would take your call and would be willing to meet with you. Right? We have scripts for that too. Follow up. Write 10 handwritten notes. So if we talk to somebody, we should write them a note that says, "It was good talking to you the other day.
Yeah.
Look forward to working with you." Right?
Do you think the handwritten note is a bit outdated? Because nowadays so many people get, flyers on the mail and they don't really look at them.
So the question is, many people get flyers in the mail and don't look at them. Right? Do you get lots of flyers in the mail?
Yeah,
You don't look at them.
no, generally.
Do you get very many handwritten notes?
Handwritten note?
Handwritten notes?
No.
No. If you got one, would you read it?
Yes,
Yes. Right? Would it look different from all the other mail?
yes.
Yes.
I got one handwritten, yes.
Right? Did you open that one?
Yes.
Yes. Right. By the way, for those of you that have been in the business a little while, the idea, one of the things they found when they interviewed the 150, 160 millionaire real estate agents is many of them were using a system originally developed by a guy named Joe Stumpf, S-T-U-M-P-F. And also you may, if you haven't heard of Joe, you might have heard of one of his proteges, Brian Buffini.
Oh.
Right? Brian Buffini went to Joe Stumpf's classes. Joe Stumpf came first, right? And then came Brian Buffini. And part of this is called a referral only or by referral only is their trademark. And it involves writing handwritten notes to people because people will open them and read them. Right? Right? Should we just, why don't we just send them an email? Isn't that cheaper?
So,
It took less effort. It's not, it looks like everything else too. It doesn't stand out.
Right. How many? Emails are not good for developing relationship. Right. It's
No.
good for communicating data,
Yep.
but not so good for developing relationship. We're gonna talk to 10 people, put 10 people in our database, write 10 handwritten notes. Know the market. Preview. There's Gary Keller likes to say that market knowledge is what a new agent can use to trump experience. Market knowledge can trump experience. So if you preview 10 homes a week, every week, 2 a day, preview at least 10 homes in your marketplace. My suggestion would be that you find a area to specialize in. I have videos, by the way, some of which you could access. They're on my YouTube channel. And one of them is called How to Find a Farm. Right? Does everybody understand the concept of geographic farming as a real estate agent? It's like agriculture. You get a plot of land. You plant seeds. You cultivate. And later you harvest. So real estate agents get a plot of land, right? A neighborhood, a subdivision, an area, they plant seeds. Right? Just listed, just sold, market updates. That's cultivation. They continue to do it so that when people there are thinking of selling their home, they think of that agent. So first, you ought to learn a neighborhood, and then an area, maybe a zip code, and move out from there. It's difficult for you to be an expert everywhere at once. And one of the reasons for geographic farming is that you can learn an area. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're farming an area, but you're not. So if I'm farming an area, what I ought to do is preview. By the way, there's videos of me showing you how to set up in our multiple listing service an email alert so that whenever something happens in a geographic area, which you can determine on a map, you get sent an email as soon as possible. So anybody lists a home in my geographic area, I get an email, and my goal is to go look at the house. Right, preview it. I don't have a buyer. I just want to go preview the house. Now, I still use, but I used a app called Evernote. I don't know if you're familiar with Evernote. It's both a mobile app plus there's a web interface. Evernote will allow me to attach PDFs like printouts of the MLS, videos, pictures, personal notes, audio recording, so I can take pictures of the property. Now, the reason I'm doing this is so that when my farming produces a call and somebody calls me up and says, I'm interested in selling my home, please come over and talk to me. And I'm coming over there and I'm doing a comparative market analysis, right? That's a CMA. Does everybody know what CMA stands for? Country Music Awards. Is that what it stands for? Well, so I'm there doing my comparative market analysis, and I'm talking to the seller about their house versus the other homes that are in this market. Do you understand what the problem is if I haven't seen any of them personally? See, what most real estate agents do is they farm an area and then they wait for a call. And then when somebody calls them, they go to the computer and they print out properties that have sold and are on the market in that area. Now, they haven't seen any of them because why should they go and see homes when they don't have a client? Isn't that right? Why bother? If I don't have a client, why should I go look at homes? Right, the ones I'm looking at might not be relevant, so why bother? Right? So now I'm there on my CMA. By the way, do you think the seller has been going to open houses for the last 6 months because he's been thinking about selling his house?
And they know them all.
So he's seen all of the homes, but I haven't seen any of them. And I'm trying to bluff market knowledge. Isn't that what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to bluff him. Would it be better if I had seen every single home that was on that market at the CMA? Been inside all of them.
Sure.
And when I'm saying, I know it says remodeled kitchen, but really all they did is resurface the cabinets and put in a new drain. That's all they did, new sink. That's all they did. Right? Would that be better than me looking at the photos in the MLS to try and figure out what exactly they did when they remodeled it? Right? Does everybody understand why that would be important? Right? So if this requires a commitment. I'm going to work this area and I'm going to make a commitment to see everything that comes on the market. We can go look at actives, some of them, but not all pendings, and we can't go see the solds, can we? I actually did that one time in a townhouse complex I was working. I went and knocked on the door and I said to the people, look, I know you just bought this house like a month ago and I didn't have a chance to see it when it was on the market. Can I just take a peek? Right? Do you understand? I mean, why not? Right? She said, sure, go ahead, look at it. Right? But do you understand, unless you're really outrageous, you're not going to be able to go see them. Isn't that right? It's done, sold, closed. So you need to be previewing the homes now. Right? One of our top agents had made a decision at one point in his career he wanted to work with $2 million and above properties. Right? Wanted to raise the price point, wanted to do $2 million and above properties. And what he did for over a year is he previewed the $2 million and above properties. He did not have a client, did not have a buyer. He just went and looked at them. Right? And after a year, he had a $2 million listing. 2-something million, because it changed his mindset. Isn't that right? Changed his mindset. He saw what agents were doing. He understood what they looked like and what the differences were. When I remember I mentioned in a different life I worked for a photocopier company. One of the first things they did when they taught you to be a photocopier salesperson is they taught you how to photocopier worked. Actually showed you how it worked. Right? I can explain the basics is how a photocopier actually makes copies, right? Because I went through this class. Now, you could say, well, why do you need to know that? All your job isn't to fix them or to build them, it's just to, but by knowing, if somebody, do you think somebody ever would, I was asked occasionally, well, how does that work? Why is that, what does that do, right? And if you say, I don't know, right? I got no idea. Do you want to buy the photocopier though, right? Do you think there are a lot of real estate agents that really have no idea whether or not, what does 750,000 buy you in San Jose? They really don't have any idea, right? Because they're not looking at homes. So 10, by the way, where I was before, we had a higher number. But I believe that if you were working 40 hours a week and you invested, would you have time for 3 hours a day of lead generation and a couple hours to go look at homes?
Sure.
Right? And still have time left over. So great habits. If you were to get, you need this system to get 16 transactions a year, and this is using sort of general numbers, it breaks down to about 2 appointments a week. I think I came up with that also. 4, right, to get 1 a month, I don't know. Our averages were about 2 appointments a week.
2 converted appointments or 2?
2 appointments. If you're meeting with 2 people every week, buyers and sellers, your odds of conversion, you're going to have about 100 appointments a year. Your conversion odds, assuming you're not really good at it, are still going to be good enough to do about 16 transactions. So it'd be good to track this. So, by the way, we're going to be tracking how well you're adding to your database. Hopefully you're going to be tracking, connecting with 10 people. This is called the Daily 10-4. And there's an online system. I actually send something out to everybody because not everybody has access to Keller Williams' system because they're not in it yet. But I have something that just to give you a chance to participate, a list of all the activities, and so you can check them off as you've done them. Week 1 success milestones. How many appointments did you get? Plan your new life, how to live like a successful agent. One of our accountability sessions, which is on Friday, we're going to talk about scheduling a little bit more in using a time management tool. So I talked about you have to have a desire which, results in a commitment for a long enough period of time to produce results, and they have to have a willingness to learn. How that breaks down into specifics is you need, if you're going to do real estate full-time, a commitment to spend 40 to 60 hours a week at the beginning. Full-time, 40 to 60 hours a week. Number 2, my estimate is you need to be willing to work from a time-blocked schedule. A time-blocked schedule. Most millionaire real estate agents lead boring lives. I mean, they go on nice vacations, but they lead boring lives in the sense that they're doing the same thing every day at the same time. Okay? So wake up, personal improvement, workout, read, etc. We shared at a team meeting, and if you Google search this on the internet, you'd find a lot of when they found that people that were very successful and were happy generally had certain traits they did every day. 4 things, right, which come out at the top of the list. Happy, successful people, 4 things they do every day. Can anybody guess what they might be? 4 things happy, successful people do every day. Eat. Exercise.
Spend time with family.
Huh?
Something with work.
Is there chocolate in there someplace?
Yes.
Exercise, so spending time with family and all that is part of it, but exercise was one of them. 90% of millionaires exercise in the morning before work. 90% millionaires.
You have to exercise in the morning.
Yes, 90%. By the way, Keller Williams we're the largest residential real estate company in the world now. The world just happened recently. By far, since 2012, we've been the largest in the United States. We passed Coldwell Banker in 2012, Century 21 in 2010, and we've surveyed our top agents. And what we find, there's 10 habits that they seem to share. I know I was bringing it down to 4, but one of them is they get up early, right? The average time for our top agents to begin their day is 4:45 to 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I'm just saying, doesn't mean you have to.
Like, that's the wake up.
That's when they wake up
Right.
and when they wake up. So, 4 habits of happy, successful people. One is exercise in the morning. 3 are in the morning. 2 is meditation. Some form of meditation. Right? And by the way, meditation is not what you think. Think about that for a second, right? It's sort of a joke. See, meditation is not what you, anyhow, you have to think about that. So they
No thinking.
no thinking. They meditate for a period of time, and they exercise, meditate, and make a gratitude list. I'm grateful for. This is every morning. And at night, in a journal, write down what went well that day. Not what went bad, what went well.
Building.
Right.
Yeah.
Happy, successful people. So during Ignite, and one of the reasons that we do Ignite in the morning is so that you get in the habit of blocking your mornings. All right. That's one of the, people say, well, if you want us, because generally we find that prospecting is done, it's easier to do it in the morning. It's easier to do the things we don't like to do. One of the things they talk about in the book, The One Thing, which is one of the books I would recommend reading, is that they've tracked willpower is not, one of the phrases is willpower is not on will call. And they've tracked people's willpower in a variety of studies during the day, and people have more willpower in the morning than they do later in the day. It's just the truth, it seems like. So the things that we don't like to do, that are harder for us to do, that require more willpower to do, we ought to do them in the morning. Right? So during Ignite, and then after Ignite is when we notice 9 to 11, that's 2 hours a day, we're cutting one off, is lead generation. Does everybody see after Ignite, 2 hours a day lead generation? But if you're saying, I don't want to do 10 a day, how about if you did 5 a day, if you talk to 5 people a day, 5 days a week, that's 25 people a week, times 4 weeks in a month is 100 people a month, times 12 months is 1,200 people from 5 a day. I know I seem to be lowering the standard, don't I? But if you had contacted 1,200 people in a year, would you be doing some serious real estate business?
Yeah. Still.
Right? You'd still be doing serious. Most real estate agents do not talk to 5 people a day. Right? If it's one of the things it says plus BOLD is one of our advanced training programs. The average person who goes through BOLD does about 9 transactions. And one of the things, we have a list of what are called BOLD laws. One of them is that if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. And another BOLD law is it's not about selling real estate, it's about following a schedule.
Yeah, it's so true.
Right? If it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist.
Is that in our book here?
It's right at the bottom of page 141 is that it says if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. And I'm just telling you, there's a BOLD law that says it's not about selling real estate, it's about following a schedule. Can everybody relate to that?
Yes.
All right. So our prospecting, which is our number one thing, our lead generation, should that be on our calendar?
Every day.
Every day. It should be on our calendar. Should we treat it like a job that we would be fired if we didn't do it?
Yes.
Right? Are we much right? You understand? Many real estate agents are looking. One of the agents that I coached, and she did 3 transactions quickly. Right now, by the way, one of the things that, let me just do this if you don't mind. I think I've already got one that's done. One of the concepts we like to talk about at Keller Williams is something called E to P.
Oh, I read that.
And what E to P says is that we're all going to reach a certain level through our natural ability. E originally stood for entrepreneurial. Let's just say this one is more of an E to P, but that's it. Anyhow, what E stood for entrepreneurial, let's just say E means easy, right? E means easy. So doing what's easy, we will get some result. Some of us won't get anything, but some of us will get some result. She did 3 transactions in her first 3 months. Easy. Right? Hasn't sold a house since. Right? Didn't sell a house again. Because she burnt through her immediate sphere of influence, sold homes, and that was it. Never developed a lead generation system, never time blocked her lead generation. She stopped showing up for coaching appointments because she had a listing and was busy. Right? Too busy to come. Now, the most listings I ever held at one time was 15. Some of them were in escrow, but I had 15 listings at one time. I played racquetball with a friend of mine 3 times a week at the same time, every week, and never missed a session. Never missed. And I had 15 listings. So I happen to know that having 1 listing does not mean your schedule is shot, right? Do you understand? It doesn't mean you can't make a once a week appointment. But can you see how this agent's I've got a client, I've got a buyer, I've got a seller.
Life stops.
And everything else stops. Everything else stops. And then what happens when that one closes, we're back at, remember the railroad car
Oh my God,
that's
it's so
at
hard.
dead stop again. Do you understand there's only so many times you're gonna start pushing when it's at a dead stop,
Yeah.
right? And there's a certain point where you're going to say, forget it, it's not worth it, I'm just gonna give up.
Yeah.
So so E means, and we have different ceilings for this, right? Some of us start with a naturally higher. The woman that told me she didn't know anybody in Santa Clara County who did almost $2 million in commissions last year, she had the gift of knowing no one and having no easy transactions. Do you understand?
Sure.
That was a gift, right? Because she had to develop habits and systems to go get business. Sometimes knowing a few people that want to buy or sell a real estate ruins new agents' careers because they think, oh, this is easy, right? But the person, she kept waiting for it to stay easy, and it didn't stay easy. P stands for purposeful, which means that we need to develop habits to do things that are not natural to us to begin with. Okay? Isn't this true?
E is natural.
E is what is easy and natural, and P is purposeful.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay.
So for us to do better at something, one of my mentors used to say, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? I used to say to him, I'm paying for this, right? Right? Really? Right? In other words, if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. One of the things that Diana Kokoska, who put together Bold, says, in order to get to better, we first have to get to different. Isn't that right? In order to be better, we have to be different. Right? And that means doing things that are not necessarily natural, but are purposeful. Does everybody see what this has to do with when we're talking about the daily 10-4 and the schedule? Right? 90 days. Wake up, personal time. So like on Saturday and Sunday, open houses. I know there are not a lot of them.
I went to like 4 yesterday with my daughter.
You did?
I went to 4.
I'm by not a lot of them. I mean, the homes in this market, they sell quickly. So oftentimes a listing agent does an open house.
Yeah.
We'll talk about open houses in another class that's coming up. By the way, in the coaching program, just so you understand, I don't know if any of you saw when you walked in, our mission, vision, and value statement, which is to the left of the receptionist area. You may not have saw it when you walked in. The mission, well, part of our mission is, which we've repeated, is careers worth having, businesses worth owning, and lives worth living. And our value statement is God, family, then business. That's what it says on the wall. So in a coaching system, what I do when I start with people is I suggest that they get a calendar and start by blocking off vacations and family time. Right? Start with that. All right? I've known real estate agents that were very, very successful who committed suicide. A guy that I went to high school with worked at the company. He's on marriage number 4. A successful real estate agent, right? Right? He's just on his 4th. Do you understand? You know, when you're gone, do people care how many homes you sold, right? Or trophies. So we want you to block for time to do something besides real estate, right? Part of what we are looking at is there's something called the wheel of life, is that we would like you to have a balanced life, right? Lives worth living. Some of the classes that Keller Williams does, some of the training is not about selling real estate at all. We actually have a fitness program at the office. There's a program about investing, about running your business like a business, about things that are beyond just selling real estate. All right. So schedule like you mean it. Do you have a day planner, a business planner? Do you use Google Calendar? You should have a calendaring system that you can access easily. If somebody were to say, I'd like to make an appointment with you, you should be able to make an appointment with them, right? And you should time block. I don't buy it when somebody says, well, I had to reschedule in the morning because I had a home inspection, right? How many home inspectors are there?
A lot.
A lot. Is it a competitive business? Very much so. Would you find one that would come when you want them to? Absolutely. Right. Do you understand? If this were a medical appointment, you would say, I can't do it. Isn't that what you'd say? I'm going to the doctor. I'm having an operation. But many times we will reschedule lead generation time because we sort of want to. Right? I have a good excuse. I have a listing. I don't have to lead generate anymore. And other classes. How to protect your time. Block your calendar. You'll see the office that I share with another agent, it says on there's 2 signs on our door. One says, essentially, don't bother me, I'm doing my one thing. And the other one says, no, do not enter between certain times. Agents will put on the door, don't bother, I'm prospecting, right? By the way, when I meet with people, I usually don't have my cell phone with me, right? When I'm doing appointments. Do you understand we need to protect our time, right? Block it in the calendar, treat it like a job, that they would fire you if you did not show up. No skipping. If you erase, you must replace. No interruptions unless it's a real emergency. There's a video they showed in bold about a guy that was making making phone calls for a company that sold stocks and things like that, and was watching his numbers, and he wouldn't drink water while he was doing the lead generation because he would go to the restroom more often, and he was calculating how much time the people he was competing with, how much time it would take him to go to the water cooler and get something to drink and stand around and talk and go back and then go to the restroom and then go back, and he didn't want to waste that time. There was related to this, a study that was done, which has been quoted a lot in sales areas, about these 2 golfers. And one of them made over $1 million golfing, and the other one made about $100,000, both professional golfers, and they golfed at pretty much the same tournaments, right? So their track record was easy to compare. They went to the same tournaments. one of them made 10 times as much as the other. When they analyzed the difference between the two golfers, it was 1/4 of a stroke a hole. That was the difference. 1/4 of a stroke a hole was the difference from one making 10 times as much as the other. But you understand, 1/4 of a stroke a hole times 18 holes times tournament after tournament after tournament has a huge effect, right? Time blocking. Leverage resources, allied resources. And if you're not in our office, you need to know lenders, closing inspectors. By the way, we have a, right outside, they all have their business cards and things. You should, will they meet with you? Home warranty companies, will they meet with you? Will they?
Sure they will.
Right, sure they will, yes.
Yeah.
So you ought to get to know as many of them as you can. A B2B team, attorneys, certified public accountants. Remember I was talking about this: plumbers, landscapers, electricians, carpenters, foundation, security companies, exterminators, painters, roofers, chimney, house cleaners, stagers, window cleaners, pool cleaners. If you think about it, you can think of more than that, right? Should you know somebody in all of those different industries, right?
Okay.
Would it be, and if you don't, would it be a good idea to go meet people? If they say, I already know somebody in real estate and I'm not gonna send you referrals, I send them referrals, find another person.
Wait, say that one more time. If they don't,
If they say, I'm not gonna send you referrals because I already know somebody and I send them all my referrals, find another one.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Find another one.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense.
I used to have something, I called it the Gold Client Appreciation Club, because I was at Century 21 and we were gold, right? And what that was, is I would get these kinds of people, first of all, they would co-market with me. So when I was doing mailers, some of them would pay for inserts and to mention. Newsletters, some of them would write articles. I would say, would you write an article, certified financial planner, would you write an article about investing in real estate? I'll be sure to include your name, your phone number, your email address, and a link to your website. Do you think they would write an article? Right? Put ads on websites, and I would get them to offer discounts, 1 hour free consultation. Do you think a certified financial planner would offer somebody a 1 hour free consultation? Right? And I put together a list of people that I worked with. And I was marketing them and they were marketing me. Right? Just saying. And do we have a script here for talking to the allied resources and other businesses?
I like those strips.
Huh? And where are we now? Your business checklist. I'm on page, we're almost done, 49. Do you have a professional email address? Yahoo, Hotmail, AOL are not professional email addresses. Gmail is not a professional email address. I've worked with clients at Google. Google employees do not use Gmail. Did you know that?
No.
It says google.com.
Oh,
Doesn't say
that's
Gmail.
their business, that's their company,
Google.com.
Google.
Right?
Oh, theirs is Google.
Right. It would say, if I worked there, it'd say Mike Devlin at google.com, not Gmail. Gmail is a personal email that anybody can get for free. Yahoo. Right. Now we provide our agents with a kw.com email. I had a century21.com email. Right. Now this may or may not be that big of a deal. I got a listing in Almaden. There were 3 agents that the guy said that he was deciding from. I was one of them. And one of the reasons he said he picked me was because of my email address. I was at Century 21 and it said century21.com. He showed me the other agents' business cards. One was Hotmail, one was Yahoo, and one was AOL. And he said, and they told me they were sophisticates in internet marketing. And the comment he made about AOL, he said, that's the Chuck E. Cheese of email systems. Right, you understand? Now, in Silicon Valley, he was in marketing for a technology company, right? He understood what my V-card attachment was for his Outlook program, right? It mattered to him, right? So Yahoo, AOL, Gmail, it's not a professional. Like, I own a whole bunch of domains, but could you have one that had yourname.com? I own MikeDevlin.com, by the way, and I own MichaelDevlin.com and a bunch of others. But do you understand, would that be more professional than Yahoo, Hotmail? I'm just saying. Do you have a domain name? I have MikeDevlin.com, MichaelDevlin.com. Do you have something like that? Homes by yournamegoeshere.com. Do you have a domain name? Right? Business cards, name tag. Do you have a?
That's important.
How many? Let's see. I see one person. So I'm checking out a Nob Hill some years ago, and the checker says to me, "So how's the real estate business?" Took me a minute to realize, and I said, "Fantastic." I had just listed a condo, and I said, "I just listed this condo in the area. Who do you know that's looking to buy their first home?" And she said, "I am." Right? She didn't buy my condo, but she sold her a condo on Gold Run, which is in the Vista Park area. 5 years later, she sold it, and I helped her buy another house. Right? And I wasn't a secret agent. Right? You understand? That's all I was doing. I wasn't being a secret agent. And if people recognize that you're in real estate, might they ask you, how's the market? Open house signs, they're not that expensive. I used to have a bunch of them. New agents would say, "Can I borrow your open house signs?" I'd say, "Sure." Right? And I'd be sitting around on the weekend and my phone would ring. Somebody would say, "I saw your sign outside this house. Can I ask about it?"
Sure.
I'd say, "Sure." Right? Sure. Go ahead. Let's see, what else are we going to do? Your action plan, you should get ready to preview homes. This home tour checklist is all in your, that link that you got when you signed up. You could print out this page if you wanted to. Work on trying to get an open house. I have a video on how to find open houses for people that are in our office. Plan and time block. This is we're going to be ending in a minute, but 55. Plan and time block activities to add names for the daily 10-4. And does anybody have any ahas from today? Other than the room filled up more from when we started. Yes, Hannah.
I really like the easy is doing the natural, because that just makes sense, but the purposeful is the counterintuitive of doing the unnatural and building that as a habit. I could see how that will benefit me and my clients.
Great. Excellent. Any others?
The separation between marketing and prospecting, because a lot of people think it's combined together, and even I did, so.
Okay.
I think expanding your view of your sphere, by that grid is gonna be really helpful.
Great. Any others?
I think it's always going back to the basics too. It's easy to get off track, and that's kind of what I'm using this as,
Good.
getting back to the basics.
Professional musicians practice scales. Professional sports teams, when the 49ers meet at their training camp, they don't just practice trick plays, but practice blocking and tackling. Practicing the basics is the fundamental, right? All right, so tomorrow, 9 o'clock we're gonna be done at 11 tomorrow, because we're having a team meeting at 11:30, but you're all invited to stay for that. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is tomorrow prospecting? I saw